Already.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock and ask the city clerk to read the statement of compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act into the record. Before you do that, I just want to make a note that unfortunately we do not have microphones this evening, so we're going to have to speak loudly so that everybody can hear us. And we apologize for that. We did not know this was going to happen until we showed up. So it's not something that we can fix before tomorrow. So
We tried.
So I'll try and speak loudly and I'll ask everyone else to do the same. So please.
This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, with the meeting notice provided to the newspapers, the members on the listserv, department heads, and the city engineer. The meeting agenda provides for action items known at the time of posting and is subject to change. This meeting is being streamed live and recorded using the Zoom meeting platform. Roll call, Mayor.
Yes, please.
Councilwoman Kaminsky. Here. Councilwoman Lambert. Here. Councilman Lai.
Here.
Council President Stegman. Mayor Noack.
Here. I would ask, since we have so many people in the room tonight, to please keep your remarks, your talking to the vestibule. It's hard for us to hear when people are talking, so I would appreciate that. I know there's a lot of you here for a lot of different reasons tonight, but it would help us out a lot. So we're going to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll remain standing for a moment of silence. And tonight I'd like to reflect on the sacrifice made by our local men and women who died in action serving this country and this city. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you please remain standing. Thank you. Well, again, welcome everyone. It's good to see you all. A lot of business tonight. First, we do have a public participation period. I'm curious to know how many people might be here to speak to the sale of the Hibernia Firehouse. Are there people here who wish to speak to that? Okay, just two of you? All right, so then I'm going to go ahead and allow that. If there were a lot of people, it seemed like there might be quite a few people who you're speaking to the sale of Hibernia Firehouse.
I thought that we had to keep
No,
comment to the agenda for
No.
the first.
no, we changed that several months ago. So,
A few minutes ago.
so as long as there's only 2 or 3 people who wish to speak to that, I'm going to allow it at the early public participation. We have a full agenda tonight. We have some guest speakers here, so I wanted to be mindful of our time during public participation. If there were going to be a lot of people, I was going to ask those people to wait until the second public comment period. But we will now open it up to public comment. We will ask you to step up to the, can they step up here?
Well, we have that set up, so if they do,
Okay.
they have to just.
If you could just kind of approach the dais a little bit nearby and just to review public comment rules here at the council meetings. We will ask you to state your name and your address. You'll have 3 minutes of uninterrupted remarks and or questions for the council. The council may or may not respond. So please try your remarks to 3 minutes. We work through that clock.
Sure. Jeff Tittle, 33 Wilson Street. And I saw it in the Star Ledger this week, a dubious achievement where Lambertville was listed as one of the 30 towns with the highest tax increase in the state, number 26. And we're in the list of the 33 pointless towns in the state too. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because of the items that are on the agenda tonight. We had a volunteer fire department, it costs about $500,000 a year. I know things change. We now have a commission and a paid fire department. It's 1.3 million. So taxes are going up. And I wanted to talk about the water utility. I'm a person who has always opposed utilities. And the reason is that they become another way to spend money without the accountability of the town council. When the town I was in before, we actually dissolved some of the utilities and put the responsibility there because the way of getting around bonding requirements is a way to get getting around the cap. And I wanted to start that off with that piece, and then I'm going to go into why I think it's a bad idea for Lambertville. Lambertville is 1 square mile and a watershed that's over 13,000 square miles above it. We have streams in our town where we're 1/10 of a square mile or 1/4 of a square mile, and watersheds that go 20 to 30 square miles. What we do in Lambertville cannot be done by itself. We're not an island. We have to be able to do this in a regional approach with the towns around us. If we don't, it's sort of meaningless. I'll give you an example. If we allow the development of Lambertville High School, which is probably going to happen, then the village apartments has become basically a big detention basin because it's all going to run downhill. This town is 90% developed. 1/3 of the land, which is almost all the land that's vacant, is publicly owned as green acres. So there's very little places, if any, to do mitigation. Secondly, the houses are older and they cannot support green roofs. Many of them are pitched roofs. The flat roofs are very old. Most people's property in this town are 90% impervious. So you're going to be either asking people to tear up their driveways or get rid of their patios. The problem for this town is this is a very expensive proposition for a small community. And it's not going to deal with their flooding issues. You know, somebody talked about putting a rain garden behind the CVS. Well, that was under 4 foot of water during Ida. We have problems with Swan Creek, and quite frankly, the FEMA work that's been done, because they had to do it to get the money from FEMA, most of that's going to fail again, because we rebuilt in the same exact places that failed. And the reason no town in New Jersey has done this is that it's going to take a lot more work and understanding of the flooding and watersheds in our communities to be able to do this right. In fact, many of the people who are coming and supporting it, they can't get it passed in their own towns. And the reason is because it doesn't work on a local level, a small town. It has to be done in a regional approach. And I'll end it there. There's more stuff, but I might come back to it.
The members of the public wish to make a comment?
Hi, I'm Sean Ellis, 21 Belvedere. I have a quick question about the folks on Zoom, how they'll hear everyone and how they'll speak for public comment. It was advertised as being Zoom.
It is, it's always Zoom.
Okay, so they'll be able to speak.
Yes, we allow people in the room to speak first. and then
Okay, great.
people on
They just
Zoom
have to have their hand raised.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, everybody on Zoom hear that? Gotta have your hand raised. Okay, so as I said, I'm Sean Ellis. I'm the president of Soups on Salon, a local nonprofit, registered nonprofit based in Lambertville. Our membership includes so many people across so many diverse communities, teachers, professionals, elected officials, artists, partnerships with other nonprofits. And our mission is to provide a space that unites people to build a more beautiful and equitable world. We connect people through art, music, and creative expression, health and wellness, community organizations, and social connections, mutual aid, and education. Essentially, we're like a kind of an umbrella organization to lots of groups that can't find or afford space in town. Lots of experiments, are creative experiments that can happen, and I think this is essential to a vibrant, thriving community. Without, and I want to say that the key mission is the word space. In our mission, the key to that mission is the word space, because without the space, we can't serve as the community center that we would like to be. And we're critically blocked in our mission to unite people and build those connections. So due to the sudden announcement of the sale of the Hibernia Firehouse, we've been asked to vacate our current space by July 1st, leaving us and many of our planned events without a home. So I'm here tonight to formally thank the mayor and the council for considering the lease of the Holcomb cabin to us. I know that it's far from a done deal, but it really is would be a great space for us to continue our mission and continue our service to the community. I would like to also just mention that by renting and caring for the cabin, Soups on Salon can provide a little relief to the costs of taxpayers. I mean, we're here, a lot of people are here for the budget tonight, so this is whatever, what we can do to help relieve that burden, and we can also provide value to the rest of Lambertville. We have been good tenants. We've won the trust and the support of the community over the past year, and I just want to name a few things that we've done, and then I'll end my comments. We've built bridges with the local Hispanic community and a few Latin dance events, fundraisers, and art making for the Oaxaca Day through partnerships with the library. If Trina Bardusco was not at the New Jersey Library Association conference today talking about Latinas in Lambertville, she'd be here speaking on that. We've hosted multiple clothing swaps in collaboration with Free Bridge Mutual Aid. We provided meeting and event space to Indivisible, a nonprofit that seeks to educate, motivate, and activate constituents in the work to restore, preserve, and extend democratic rights for all citizens. We've hosted voter information sessions with some city council candidates that are present today, who got elected and are present today. And we provided meeting space to Ride Free, a project that provides rides to residents who are unable to drive or lack transportation, and we know how difficult that can be in this area because we don't have very good public transportation. We hosted a leadership retreat for the Poor People's Army. We raised nearly $3,000 for IDA victims, replacing beloved belongings lost in the flood and helping families land on their feet after displacement. We've provided wheelchair accessible space to local performers and artists, some of whom include our neighbors in the Hibernia apartments. I'm almost done. 3 more points. We co-hosted a reading of the Laramie Project, and the proceeds were donated to the Rainbow Room in Doylestown. We're providing a filmmaking camp for teens this summer, taught by 2 award-winning filmmakers that are local. We've initiated collaboration with Bike Lambertville and the Environmental Commission to explore a bike share program in town, encouraging sustainable transportation and reducing traffic and parking issues. And not only did we care for the Hibernia, but we repaired at our own expense the broken heat, electric, and basement lights that Ida had wiped out.
Sean, will you please
So
finish?
thank you very much for considering us tonight.
Thank you.
And
Try and keep
council.
the 3-minute rule
Yeah.
equitable across the board. Thank
Okay.
you. How many people want to speak in this public session? Okay. What's that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to actually, I'm going to ask for motion from the council to close this for the time being and then to reopen it after the stormwater presentation, because I think that in fairness to our guests, I was not expecting this level of public engagement tonight. I'd like to be able to allow them to present, make their presentation, and then head back to their homes. So unless there's a concern from the council about that process, I would like to come back to it. We can come back to it immediately after the stormwater presentation.
So you're proposing that we do the stormwater presentation, move that up, and then reopen the public participation immediately
Yeah.
upon conclusion?
Yeah.
I think
That's fine.
Yeah.
that's the benefit of having 2 public participations.
Right, and that's a courtesy to our guests.
All right, so I'm going to temporarily suspend the public comment period until immediately after our presentation, just so that, as I said, so our guests can kind of make their presentation, the council can ask their questions, and then we can move on to the rest of the meeting. So thank you very much for that. So at this time, I would like to welcome Lindsay Sigmund from the New Jersey Future. We have Richard Lawton from the New Jersey Sustainable Business Council with us, and we also have James Thompson, who represents the New Jersey League Conservation Voters. And you didn't do the one in November, right?
No, I didn't. James was there.
That's right. James was here. Yeah. Okay. So we did offer a presentation for the public and the council back in the fall about a stormwater utility. I'm very interested in moving forward with a stormwater utility feasibility study, which will provide the city with important data about whether a stormwater utility might be something that we should consider. That ultimately, once the study's done, the council will take a look at the data and decide whether it has enough merit for us to move forward. At which time I would then put that on the referendum for the voters to decide ultimately. So with that, I'm going to let Lindsay get underway. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your time.
Good evening, council and everyone. Thank you so much for having us this evening. Thank you for making time on your agenda to talk about this important topic. I hope everyone can hear me. I kind of have a quiet voice, so I'm doing my best to project. My name is Lindsay Sigmund. I'm a program manager with New Jersey Future. I oversee our mainstreaming green infrastructure program. And New Jersey Future is a proud part of Flood Defense New Jersey, which is a coalition of organizations across New Jersey working with communities to explore what a stormwater utility could look like in their community to meet their stormwater infrastructure needs. And you're going to hear from two other flood defense partners, Richard Lawton from New Jersey Sustainable Business Council and James Thompson from New Jersey League of Conservation Builders. And we're going to talk about stormwater utilities and why they make sense for municipalities that need to identify solutions for their stormwater infrastructure needs. So a little bit more about where I'm coming from. New Jersey Future is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization based in Trenton, but we work across the state on a range of issues, including stormwater management. Like I said, I oversee our mainstreaming green infrastructure program. I've been with New Jersey Future for about a year, and before joining New Jersey Future, I was the environmental planner for the city of Jersey City for a few years. So my background is in planning. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey and with the American Institute of Certified Planners. And the bulk of my experience is in local government, so again, we get to understand all of the work that goes into local government. So we're going to talk about today, stormwater, why do we care? How do we currently pay for stormwater improvements? I'll give an introduction to stormwater utilities, then I'll pass it over to Richard to talk about stormwater utilities and businesses, and then we'll hear from James about the Flood Defense Coalition and some resources that that coalition offers, and we'll have plenty of time for questions from the council. So what is stormwater? I'm sure everyone has an understanding of stormwater, has their own definition, but just to get everyone on the same page, simply put, stormwater is rain or melting snow that flows off of streets, lawns, or other sites. This graphic here is showing what happens when rainfall falls in the natural environment compared to a more urban environment. So when it rains on a long natural ground cover, we have more infiltration and less runoff into our stormwater infrastructure, compared to an urban environment that has higher impervious cover. That's our streets, buildings, sidewalks. We have less infiltration and more runoff into our stormwater infrastructure and our waterways. Why is stormwater runoff increasing in New Jersey? New Jersey is a very developed state, and we have been experiencing increased storm intensity and frequency. In recent years, we've seen an increase in average annual rainfall, and there's projected increases in average annual rainfall in the future. So why do we care about stormwater? So when storms occur, rainwater runs off of impervious surfaces like roads, roofs, parking lots, and into our stormwater management systems and waterways. And the stormwater carries oil, pesticides, other chemicals, sediments, and bacteria that contaminate our waterways, making them unsafe for drinking, fishing, and recreation. And it's estimated that about 60% of New Jersey's impaired waterways can be attributed to non-point source pollution, which are those sources I just listed, like pesticides and fertilizers. And stormwater leads to flooding. Lambertville, along with many other communities in New Jersey, are all too familiar with flooding. These photos are from Costa Ida. I'm sure you've all seen these photos and many similar photos. Road closures, debris along the roadways. And while this is the more extreme example of floods, it was about 11 inches of rainfall accumulated in the city over the course of the storm. Communities across the state experienced localized flooding even from a smaller rain event of just 2 inches due to antiquated or undersized water infrastructure. And stormwater hurts our economy as well. So how do we currently pay for stormwater infrastructure upgrades? They're paid through property taxes and sewer fees. So knowing all of the vulnerabilities that our state communities experience, water quality, flooding, aging infrastructure, what are our options to fund our solutions? We could do nothing, business as usual, be reactive. We could increase property taxes or sewer rates to bridge the gap of funding needs, or we can explore a more dedicated, stable funding source that is specifically for stormwater needs, known as a stormwater utility. So just to back up, what is a stormwater utility? Similar to a water or sewer utility, a stormwater utility is a dedicated funding mechanism to pay for a community stormwater management program. So it's a fee based on the amount of impervious cover that is on a property. So it's based on the amount of stormwater a property generates. It's based on the amount of property is contributing to the problem of stormwater. This is not a new concept. This map here shows the number of stormwater utilities by state as of 2022. There are over 2,000 stormwater utilities formed in the United States, ranging from small communities, regional, and as you can see, it's not a red state, blue state type of issue. There are states that exist all across the country, California, Texas, Florida. But as of today, there are no utilities established in New Jersey. To be fair, this was not made possible until 2019, when the state passed the Clean Stormwater and Flood Reduction Act. So this New Jersey law allows, but does not require local governments to establish stormwater utilities. It's not a mandate, it's an enabling legislation, allowing municipalities to explore this option to understand, what would a stormwater utility look like in our community. And in the law, it states that stormwater utilities must collect fees based on the amount of stormwater a property generates. So again, there must be that nexus, that connection between the amount of stormwater property is generating and the fee that they would be paying. Can be established by individual municipalities, counties, groups of municipalities, and sewerage and improvement authorities. And another important point, funds generated are dedicated solely to stormwater management. They cannot be diverted to other municipal uses. I do have a slide of what stormwater utilities can pay for in just a moment. So what are the benefits of exploring a stormwater utility, considering the utility as an option to meet stormwater needs? It's seen as an equitable approach. Because again, the fee is based on the amount of impervious cover on a property. So you have a building that has a large parking lot. They're going to pay a larger fee compared to a single family homeowner because they have a smaller building footprint. And again, it's a dedicated funding source. It cannot be used for other municipal purposes. It's stable, so when you need to make improvements to your stormwater infrastructure, need funding for stormwater planning, it is available, dedicated to stormwater needs. There is one sole exemption in the law. Active agriculture or horticulture properties would be exempt, and that's in New Jersey law. So what can it pay for? Once the fees are generated by the utility, it could pay to establish the stormwater utility, rather the recovery of funds that were used to establish the stormwater utility. It can be used for capital expenditures, so planning, design, engineering, acquisition, construction, and improvement of the stormwater management system. Operations and maintenance, asset management. I want to highlight permit compliance because DEP renewed the MS4 permit earlier this year for every municipality in New Jersey that has any type of separate sewer system, known as the MS4, the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. I think I got that acronym right. So all municipalities are now required to undergo a watershed improvement plan, which require the mapping of all of their stormwater infrastructure and the identification of water quality improvement projects. So just one example how our community is going to pay to comply with permits like the MS4 permit. A stormwater utility would be a dedicated source that could pay for permit compliance, such as the MS4. It can also be used for public outreach and education related to stormwater. And the law lists all the different uses for stormwater utility, but these are the key components of that. So what about properties that already manage stormwater on site? They already have a detention system, green infrastructure of some sort. In the law, every rate structure that's established for a utility needs to have a credit system. So a reduction in a stormwater fee based on a stormwater management system on site. It also acts as an incentive to remove impervious cover or implement green infrastructure, because then you would have a lower fee because you would have significantly less impervious cover. You wouldn't be contributing as much stormwater to the overall system. So it acts as a sustainability incentive as well for property owners. Once a community wants to explore a stormwater utility, like in Lambertville, these are important questions that we want to answer through what's called a feasibility study, understanding, okay, what would a utility look like here? How much would an average property owner pay towards the fee based on the property type? These are important questions that you want to answer. What are the problems facing your community? What are your goals for managing stormwater? Do you need a different funding structure and more resources to meet your needs? It's always important to ask, what is the cost of inaction? Without having a dedicated, stable funding source, how are you bridging the funding gap to improve your stormwater infrastructure? These are just some reasons why communities in New Jersey have started exploring a stormwater utility: flooding issues, stormwater infrastructure needs, and water quality concerns. we'll highlight a resource that's out there that New Jersey Future put together with our flood defense partners. It's the New Jersey Stormwater Utility Resource Center. Tonight was just a high level overview to get the conversation, keep the conversation going. But if you're interested in reading more, the Stormwater Utility Resource Center, you can read more about why stormwater matters, why a stormwater utility, and there's some great resources up there. That's my contact information. You know, the mayor and others have it. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions. Happy to reshare this at the end. But now I'm going to pass it over to Richard to talk about stormwater utilities and businesses.
Excellent. I'm Richard Walton of the New Jersey State Business Council. We're a network of small and mid-sized companies for the most part. They're committed to implementing sustainability practices in their own operations, but we also get involved in advancing policy that's helping to create a more just and sustainable economy overall. We support stormwater utilities who think they're good for business. They're a key driver in a lot of the towns that we talked about, that Lindsay mentioned before, in terms of economic development and economic growth. One, I saw this mentioned, this headline about Kingsport, Tennessee. Tennessee, I think has 33 stormwater utilities. Kingsport, I know, because I lived in Atlanta many years ago. I worked my prior career was for corporations, magazine publishing for about 30 years. I lived in Atlanta, and part of my region that I was responsible for was Kingsport, Tennessee. And Kingsport back then was really a dying town, and they had a lot of problems with flooding. I originally met Elizabeth Treadway, who lives in the East Tennessee area. She's a longtime career expert in stormwater management and also an expert in stormwater utilities. And she was telling me about how Kingsport has really become revitalized, and not only because of stormwater utilities, but because of the ability to have a stormwater management strategy. Stormwater utilities were a key part of that. As a result, Main Street businesses are thriving, and investment is increasing in downtown. We now have several local brew pubs, which is always a good sign about the vitality of the downtown.
Could you just speak up a little bit?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So the one thing that Elizabeth told me about, living in that area and living in Kingsport, and this is indicative of all towns that are considering stormwater utilities. From the business stakeholder standpoint, there are a few common challenges or economic barrier gates that negotiate through. And one was just in terms of the business community itself. Where's the business coming from in terms of competing loyalties and how they define success? And most people know that a lot of businesses, this is pretty much true of transnational corporations. Their whole purpose is to maximize shareholder value. And how they do that is to maximize profits. And so how they do that is externalize costs and risk to everybody else. But that's not true of our businesses, our network. These are businesses that for the most part are local place-based companies. And they have a very different business philosophy in terms of what constitutes success. And it's really based on not just short-term profits, but a more nuanced view of what the purpose of the business is, when what we call a triple bottom line, the people, planet, and profit. So businesses like those in our network, and also I've noticed somebody came in with a Patagonia t-shirt. Patagonia is one of the founding companies of our national organization, American Sustainable Business Network. And their business philosophy is they have to make a profit, but they're committed to doing so in ways that are both socially and environmentally responsible. So how they define success is not based on just conventional financial metrics, but also social and environmental impact. So when you look at stormwater utilities sort of triple bottom line lens, you reach a very different conclusion than those businesses that are really just trying to maximize profits, short-term profits on behalf of shareholders. You may have heard the phrase rain tax. And rain tax is something that's been used by businesses that really are focused on short-term profits, maximizing short-term profits as a way to kind of scare people away from stormwater utilities. The second point that's really, I think most of businesses would agree with is it's important to align financial incentives. And one of the benefits of stormwater utilities is it addresses misaligned financial incentives. Right now, as Lindsay mentioned, that those businesses that have the most impervious surfaces for rooftops and large parking lots, they're actually increasing the risk of flooding, yet they're doing it with no cost. Stormwater utility, since it's based on how much impervious surface you have, if you're contributing to the problem, you should pay more into the fund. And Lindsay also mentioned there's credits for those companies and businesses who are actually installing green infrastructure. They will get credits that will lower their cost of the fee for the stormwater fee. So in any kind of business, you see that's fair because all businesses respond to financial incentives. So what the stormwater utility does is it actually aligns those incentives to be what makes sense, from an economic standpoint, but also what's in the best interest of the community. And the last point to make here is that there's a lot of talk about stormwater utility fees, the rain tax. There's kind of a conditioned response to any kind of cost is bad, kind of a dogmatic, allergic reaction to increased costs. But one thing I think here again, for bottom line perspective, is to keep in mind that materiality is, how much money we're talking about here, really. And that'll come out in the study. But I think in every single case, and that's true of all the utilities that have been installed so far from all businesses, this immaterial. If you look at just the cost that businesses would pay, it's immaterial to the P&L. And in fact, they look at not so much as the cost, but as an investment, because it's an investment to reduce flood risk to the community in a way that enhances the resilience of the community, actually indirectly benefits the business and definitely benefits the local economy. So I'll kind of over to James now.
Good evening, everyone. To the mayor, to the council president, to the residents that are here from Lambertville. My name is James Thompson, the campaign director for the New Jersey Conservation Voters.
Excuse me, could you speak up, sir?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
My name is James Thompson. I'm the
Thank you.
campaign director for the New Jersey Conservation Voters. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan statewide organization that does a lot of work around making sure that we're preserving clean water, open space, also clean air. We do a lot of work around public policy and advocacy as well. So I kind of want to just take a little bit of time to talk about the work that we're doing. I've been with the League Conservation Voters now for about a year, campaigns director. I've been doing engagement advocacy in different areas for the past 20 years. Glad to be here to talk a little bit about the work that we're doing with Flood Defense New Jersey. To just talk a little bit about the Flood Defense New Jersey, we're a statewide coalition of different organizations that are committed to working with different stakeholders around flooding issues in New Jersey to make sure that not only for the state, but also local areas have an opportunity to address local flooding. This is just an image of just some of the organizations that are part of the Flood Defense New Jersey coalition. We work with not only different stakeholders, but also public officials and local municipalities, as well as elected and non-elected officials, to not only talk about what some of the challenges around flooding, but how they could also be addressed. As you can see, some of our coalition partners are listed as well. New Jersey Future is a partner, as well as the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commissions, better known as ANJAC, Preservation Alliance. Richard is also from the New Jersey Sustainable Business Council, along with the New Jersey Highlands Coalition. Rutgers University is also a partner as well. We all have different expertise within the coalition, and we've developed different strategies and different ways to not only be able to engage with the public, but also, like I mentioned before, with local public officials as well, on how to address local flooding issues and stormwater management. Stormwater utilities is one of the tools that we believe is very important and vital to make sure that local entities, whether it's municipality or whether it's regional or what have you, has an opportunity to deal with their local challenges around water quality and flooding. So this is just a brief overview of just some of the services that we've been able to provide to folks locally. And just to kind of back up a little bit about Flood Defense New Jersey, we've been around for about roughly a little bit more than 3 years now. And one of the things that we do is be able to provide local pass-through grants to municipalities and entities that are looking in the process and actually exploring the opportunity around conducting a stormwater feasibility study. One of the things that Lindsay mentioned earlier is that one of the beginning phases of actually entertaining doing a stormwater utility and actually being in a position to implement it is to be able to actually have a stormwater feasibility study conducted. And there's a cost obviously associated with that. So we work with municipalities around the state to be able to make sure that there's a funding stream and opportunity to be able to do that. The other thing that we do as well is technical assistance. Along with the feasibility study itself, there's obviously things that have to happen around that. And so we're also through, whether it's New Jersey Future or Rutgers University, that's been working very closely with local municipalities around the technical assistance aspect of it. We're able to provide any type of insight or information that will be needed for any given town or entity. And then also through the phase of implementation as well. The other thing that we're also have been working to provide as well is educational services. I think the most important thing here is just making sure that we're able to provide factual information and data as relevant to be able to really challenge any type of misinformation or misunderstanding, disinformation for that matter, about what stormwater utilities are. Making sure that they're not only there healthy public dialogue, but understanding what the dynamics are within any given community, and finding ways, a lot of different ways about, how those conversations are had, what concerns around flooding and stormwater management, whether local public officials or community members or other civic stakeholders or businesses might have around those concerns, making sure that there's a healthy dialogue around that. And like I said before, making sure that the right information is out there, making sure that the feasibility study itself addresses any challenges or questions that the municipality or entity might have. So we're able to provide as much of that support as possible, throughout that process. Part of one of the resources that Lindsay had also highlighted was the Resource Center, which is a website that's available to anybody. It's a resource that's not only available to local municipal leaders, but anybody here that wants to look into it. There's plenty of information up there. You're more than welcome to take a look at it. Peer-to-peer networking, there's also information as well on the resource website, where there's opportunities to kind of talk with other folks that have had experiences one way or another, with this dedicated and committed funding stream. And we're also able to provide any types of materials and events as well. As mentioned before, like we work with, other municipalities and entities around the state, and we're able as a coalition, as a group, able to pull our network and resources together to make sure that, like I said before, there's a healthy dialogue going on there. Moving forward. This is just one of the steps. This is just an image of just one of the steps that that municipalities have taken in reference to the request for proposal, the RFP itself, around the feasibility study. Like I mentioned before, one of the keys is just making sure that the RFP itself, has the type of information that the municipality needs to be able to answer some of the important questions that Lindsay had also highlighted. But there are also other more important acute challenges and expectations that each town might have that need to be addressed through the feasibility study. So this part is, is also vitally important as well. I just wanted to kind of show this quick, without showing the whole thing like this, just a sample of that. So that's pretty much all I have right now. My name, my email address is up there. We didn't put a link. Well, the resource for flood defense, I believe there's a link to the Stormwater Utility Resource Center as well, if you'd like to get other information. Thank you.
Thanks.
So just going to take a couple minutes to see if the council has any questions. So we, it's a very similar presentation back in the fall. There are a couple of new council members here since then. We're not gonna have a public dialogue on this tonight, but felt it was important for us to just review it again. It is something I'm keenly interested in moving forward on. Feasibility study, so we'll continue to talk about it and may suggest taking proposed action at some point. So I would just open it up to the council for any questions that you may have initially.
So just to address the one resident's concern about doing it just here in Lambertville as opposed to regionally, are there grants available that we could work regionally with other townships, or is this just grants for Lambertville? I think I read that there's through the infrastructure bill from last year, there's something like $5 billion, coming towards this through to New Jersey itself. So I would assume there's lots of federal money coming to New Jersey for projects like this. So I didn't know if we, should investigate regionally or, just here from there.
So the last grant that was available through the state did have a regional option, but it's my understanding, I don't think any municipality submitted as part of a region, maybe a county submitted. I think one or two counties submitted, because it's close to a regional approach. But DEP has not announced who was awarded the grant yet. But other than that, I'm not aware of any funding to explore a regional stormwater utility. Not to say that regional planning should not be prioritized. I mean, stormwater does not care about municipal boundaries. Definitely think that's good planning to work with your neighbors to identify projects. I think the MS4 permit I talked about is a prime example of that. The watershed improvement plan that requires you to look at all their infrastructure, your vulnerabilities, and identify water quality and flooding improvement projects. So you can identify projects with a region. There could be a project that's upstream in a different municipality that Lambertville could invest in that would benefit Lambertville as an individual municipality. Operationalizing something on a regional scale like this could be difficult. It's New Jersey, or a home rule state. It's sometimes hard to, again, operationalize something like this, but there's no reason Lambertville couldn't explore this to understand what it would look like on an individual municipal scale. You do start collecting fees, you are ahead of the curve. If a regional planning opportunity does present itself, you already have the funding to pay into a regional planning or project implementation.
So I know it's also relatively new, they just passed this law recently, but are there any municipalities that have done this successfully yet that we could look at the model off of, or?
Not in New Jersey. I know some towns are crossing the finish line of finishing a feasibility study, figuring out, do they need to do a phase 2? So once the feasibility study is completed, then you would make the decision, do we implement or do we not implement, or do we need to do another phase to answer more questions? I think some municipalities are in that, do we need to answer some more questions? Because again, no one has established one in New Jersey, maybe no one wants to be first, but there are plenty of success stories in other states. That map I showed earlier, that's from the Western Kentucky Stormwater Utility Survey. So if you're interested in seeing how it's playing out in other towns, maybe smaller towns like Lambertville, they could pull a couple examples and provide that to you all. I think that might be helpful. Kind of small, well, it's bigger up there. The Western Kentucky University Stormwater Utility Survey looks at how stormwater utilities are playing out across the country.
Well, is there any way to take a look at, I kind of think the regional approach here is a great point, considering we're kind of in a unique situation that we're at the bottom of a hill and next to a river, and we have the creeks flowing down. So, sometimes we can talk about different locations, but it's kind of a little apples and oranges. So it would be really helpful to see, if someone doing this, given our situation, because, you think about, well, what's the utility of being at the bottom of the hill when folks up there are going to be doing things that we don't have that much control over. So if that's possible.
Definitely, just to reiterate before, always encourage municipalities to start talking to their neighbors. Maybe surrounding municipalities are considering a stormwater utility and don't know you are. So maybe that's not a conversation to start with neighbors. Maybe the county is the entity to reach out to see, because there is another question that the feasibility study has to answer. Who's the entity that's going to be administering the fees? Would it be Lambertville MUA? Would the city create a new entity to distribute the fee? Typically, it's an existing entity that does issue fees that would operationalize this. So that's another question for the regional approach. What would be the entity that would be collecting these fees? What would be the mechanism for that?
And what phase of the assessment do we get to the point of estimating and taking a look at what these fees would be, given that, in Lambertville, we don't have as many of these big businesses or certainly multinational corporations that are here. But we also have we have a little variety where we have homes up on the hill that tend to have lawns, but then we have downtown where I happen to live where a lot of us we have a sidewalk, we have a side path, we have patios, and pretty much we're all stormwater generators downtown. And so where does that come into, each of these phases of the assessment?
Yeah, so the RFP that James showed, in the RFP itself, it's really important to outline the tasks that you want the consultant to address. So one of them would be, for example, the community engagement is very important to Lambertville and many other communities, so you want to make sure that's baked in there. But yeah, the assessing what the rate structure would be a part of the feasibility study. That would come toward the end, once you have an understanding of how much of the municipal budget is going towards stormwater, what are the needs, what upgrades would be necessary, and then doing an impervious cover assessment of the city to then be able to have this formula where you could plug in a certain type of property and understand what the fee would be for that given property. So it'd be toward the end of the feasibility study process, which could take 3 to 6 months. It really depends how much information you want from the feasibility study. But that's the goal of the study, right? To understand what would this look like? How would this affect a given property owner?
Actually, one more thing I wanted to add that Lindsay had mentioned as well is like the length of the study itself depends on a lot of different factors. So I think it really depends on like what type of questions you want to have answered. It could be 3 months for some entities, it could be right, but if you want, we just don't factors we don't know.
And that's up for the city to decide what tasks you want a consultant to complete at this time.
Where does our revision or upgrading of our stormwater ordinance fit into this whole process? I think, we've talked about needing to take another look at that and, doing some updating to that. Does that fit into this process? And it's kind of like, which one comes first? It seems like we should have our stormwater ordinance kind of crystallized and figured out and enacted. Right, so that the stormwater utility operates within that ordinance. Is that how it functions?
So the stormwater control ordinance would come into effect for any new development. I think the stormwater utility is more addressing existing impervious cover. So you can amend your stormwater control ordinance now, but it really depends what the need for that is. It's my understanding that Lambertville does have goes above the state model ordinance. That's my understanding.
It does, and it was
Yeah.
passed, it was adopted or amended about 2 to 3 years ago, 2021.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's available obviously online, it's in the council packets. So, yeah, it does exceed state regulation.
And what sort of infrastructure, if any, is required to implement a utility in the community?
So most
Physical infrastructure,
physical infrastructure.
is there any? Like, do you people just walk around, someone just walks around and says, you've got this much patio, you've got this much sidewalk? Is it prorated based on percentage, of the parcel of the property? I would assume it is.
Yeah,
Or is it I guess there's different areas. Could you kind of talk a little bit about, I guess, how it actually gets rolled out?
Yeah, like is there another item like on your tax bill? Right now, your tax bill is your county tax, your municipal tax, your full tax, your fire district tax. Then there'll be your
Or we get a
like your
quarterly,
assessment,
or we get a quarterly
or you
bill.
get a quarterly
now
bill
we
like
get-
from the
right.
New Government Sewer Authority.
Right,
Yeah,
and-
that's important, yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess another question would be, given the comment earlier about, I guess, cost mitigation, how does the community have reassurance that funding, that the spending is being done properly, that projects are being initiated and executed responsibly? And how do we have measures of success to know that it's working? I mean, we could not have floods, but I mean, like, how do we, we should not have to wait for that to find that out. So a couple questions here, so sorry. I'll
No
stop
worries,
now.
great questions. So the first question is, how is the fee assessed? Does someone go around? That would be a part of the feasibility study, is doing a full impervious cover assessment of the city and have a rate structure. So you can put in a certain property into that formula and understand what your fee would be. And whoever administers it, where it shows up on a bill, would depend on the entity who's collecting the fee. So if it was, I'm not super familiar with how you all receive your water and sewer bills, but it would be a line, I'm assuming a line item there. Depends, it would be quarterly, monthly, annually. That's all decisions that would need to be made during and after feasibility study is completed. Sorry that that's my answer a lot, but that's how you understand what a feasibility, how a stormwater utility would play out here, is by doing that work with the water resources engineer to walk through the feasibility study. And to reporting requirements, I believe it's in the Department of Community Affairs, there are reporting requirements annually that a municipality would need to submit to show where the fees are going exactly. There are specific reporting requirements to ensure that the fees that are collected are going toward the uses required by law. So it's a state audit every year.
I mean, the other thing, I think that, to further answer your question, the feasibility study itself, along with the data points that the consultant would provide, also gives an opportunity for, engaged citizens and other stakeholders to not only understand what that process is, but what those costs would be, right? So like the actual study itself is an opportunity to have this education and dialogue about it. It doesn't wed you to it, right? But it provides that opportunity for everyone to know what the cost would actually look like. And then it's going to vary. Like, Lambertville is not a very large, square footage wise, a large town, but there have been, over 2,000 entities that have done this. And there are, municipalities here in New Jersey state that are at some stage in the process of exploring. And that's the feasibility study itself is an opportunity.
Yes, please.
So you, just to recap, every property is involved. There's no exempt property that doesn't need to pay their percentage, i.e. the churches, the city's locks, and also everyone partakes in this process as far as should it come to fruition, they would be required to pay for this, depending on how big their parking lots are, or yeah. So everyone is it's inclusive on every property owner.
With the exception, I don't know if Lambertville has any active agriculture or horticultural properties. That's the only exception, and that's based on state law. So every other property would have to pay a fee.
And so we go through the process. We're not obligated by taking a grant, by implementing a plan if we think it doesn't work for us or it won't be effective for us.
No, you're not obligated.
Right, so what the grant is for is to actually, do research, locate where there could be improvements made, make those recommendations, and then we would thank you and we would.
Well, hopefully, it's, but yeah, you're not obligated.
There's no.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
no fine print.
No, there's no.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here again. We very much appreciate your time and your expertise. And I look forward to talking to you very soon. Thanks.
Hope to be back and maybe do a more community type event or a public forum. We'd be happy to be back and talk to the community some more. So
Great.
hopefully this is just the start.
Yes, yes. Thanks so much. I'm going to give you the opportunity to head out before we re-engage with the rest of the meeting. How are you? Yes. All right, we're not really in recess. We're gonna start up again so we don't lose any steam here. Ladies and gentlemen, please. Thank you. So we will at this point continue with the public comment period. I just wanted to address one thing before this public comment period. A letter was delivered to me this afternoon called Save the Hibernia Firehouse. And I'm not sure how many of you are here to speak to that. But given the fact that the letter was not made available to the city at all, it concerns me that we don't have enough time to answer or prepare any kind of response to this letter. So if you have questions or comments about this letter, I don't know who wrote it. It would have been very helpful if the city had received it earlier and not just from a resident who dropped it off at City Hall this afternoon. I think we take our responsibilities very seriously here on the dais. And we want to make sure that we answer residents' concerns and answer residents' questions, especially if it concerns a legal issue. I cannot make any public comment about this tonight. I talked to the attorney, Phil Opel, today. There's one or two legal questions here that are going to require time if we really need an answer, if we really want an answer. So while everybody is welcome to speak on this, there will be no response from the dais because we are completely unprepared to have a discussion about this. So I want to keep that in mind for those people who are here to speak about saving the Hibernia Firehouse specifically. Okay, so it's hard to. Nobody likes surprises, and it's hard for us to be responsible up here if if something like this just shows up and we don't have a chance to thoroughly take a look at it and respond properly. So I just want to make that point. I'm always available. If you got something to say, let me do the research for you. Let me prepare the answer for you, rather than kind of just finding out about it before the meeting. So with that in mind, I will once again open up the public comment period. For those people who weren't here before, just like to remind everybody that it's a 3-minute. We're going to keep it strict tonight, 3 minutes. When you hear the alarm, I would like you to please conclude your remarks. We have a lot of people, and I suspect that quite a few people want to speak to tonight. So we do have 2 public participation periods. We have one now. Well, actually 3. We'll have a public hearing for the budget amendment. So if you want to speak about the budget amendment, I would ask that you wait until we call for the public hearing on the budget amendment. Okay. And then at the end of the evening, we will have one more public participation period. So these participation periods, we now have 2 at the meetings. We're giving them a try, and they are for anything that's on the agenda or anything that's off the agenda. But please be mindful of the time. So if there are people in the room who would like to speak, I would ask you to step up to the here. There's no microphone, so I will ask you again to say your name, your address, and speak loudly for 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Jacob Gallinger. I live at 4 Bristol Street in Stockton, New Jersey. I'm a member of SUPSON. I'm on a couple of the committees. I've been actively involved pretty much right before we moved into Hibernia, and then more actively involved when we did the fish. I just want to speak on behalf of everyone involved that we're very happy to even looking at renting us a property. It's really important to us to maintain a community space in our community. If you look around the river towns, around the whole area, the nearest community center is Flemington DIY. That's available, that's open, that's a place people can gather and do things where you're not just shelling out money to a restaurant, to a bar, to whatever activity you're doing, where you can just meet your neighbors, meet people you never would have had a reason to meet before. I've met people twice my age there, I've met people younger. but people who in my day-to-day life, I never would have met, I never would have interacted with. And through that, we've also created projects. We've created things that benefit the community. Sean spoke about a lot of them, but we've also done fundraisers for all kinds of things. We've had academics come speak. We're trying to create a space for the kind of things that there's nowhere else to do them here. There's not a place where you can just have someone come and speak, charge nobody to come in and listen, and let people just hang out and exist and experience their neighbors, experience the things that we all care about, and help create those things, make the connections for the next project you want to do, whether that's artistic, whether that's musical, or whether that's something for the community benefit. And that's what I wanted to say. I think it's just really important to have that kind of space and to maintain it, to keep this community thriving. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Ask for people not to clap, please. I know that people are excited about this kind of thing, but it really just draws the meeting out longer than need be. Everybody will have their moments, and please just be mindful. This is not a theater show. This is a working council meeting.
Wait, so they can't clap for me now?
Yeah, that's right.
So, all right, so in the interest of time, my name is Chris Bakari, I live at 21 Runnymede Overview, and I'm speaking in support of the lease from the Susan organization for the Holcomb property. So I just wanted to say that Susan is a beautiful organization that facilitates connections amongst people, our community, artists, environmentalists, to nonprofits seeking to protect democracy for everybody. It's a space to make introductions with community-minded people that want what's best for our town and believe in the vision of collaboration. In their short time at the current location, Mr. Ellis had kind of gone through a laundry list of contributions that have been over the last year, including clothing swaps, exploring a bike share program, raising money for displaced Ida victims, as well as other members of our community suffering major personal loss. But on a personal level, I just wanted to say that Susan events have enabled me to meet some of the most caring, inclusive, and talented people in this community, and it has enriched my life in numerous ways. So thanks for considering them for the lease of the Holcomb space. I appreciate it.
Hello, my name's Gina Davio. I live at 195 George Street. I really can't, I'm here to support Soup's on Salon. Two gentlemen before me did a beautiful job articulating what really goes on there. I'm speaking from my heart and own personal experience. I have a lovely, beautiful leg brace on. I broke my kneecap on May 22nd in town, and I do not have a hybrid work situation. It is in person every day, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. I really relied on the free rides, the free ride mutual aid program. That is just, it blew my mind, the volunteer commitment that they have there. I can tell you, like, figuring out how much an Uber would have cost, going from Lambertville to Ewing and Ewing back to Lambertville would have cost me about $3,000 or $300 a week. My whole recuperation, that would have been well over $3,000. Single parent, got a kid in college. It really has meant the world to me, and I can't imagine.
Hello, Mayor Noack and city council members. My name is Ellen Gallows. I live at 218 South Main Street here in Lambertville, originally from Milford, New Jersey. I'm the Assistant Director of Education at the Bucks County Playhouse, and I'm also a board member of Flemington DIY, an all-volunteer run community art space in Flemington. I'm here to voice my support for Susan Salon to be awarded the lease at Holcomb Cabin. As an arts educator, I'm intimately familiar and aware of the need for a community arts space in our city. Susan Salon provides a space for our community members, regardless of their income, to explore their creativity, express themselves artistically, and seek community, something I think we all really need, especially since the pandemic. They not only serve artists in our community, but the larger community, fundraising for Ida victims, partnering with other local nonprofits, hosting voter information sessions, among many other wonderful events. The thing I love about living here in Lambertville is that we're a city of artists. And I think awarding the lease of Holcomb Cabin to Susan Salon would be an investment in our city, our artists, and our community. Thank you so much.
Hello. Thank you for having this comment period. I appreciate it. My name is George Price. I'm a social worker and I'm an artist and a producer. And I'm not from Lambertville, but I'm involved with Soupçon, and I've become a member because I find it is a cultural gem. It's I've done a lot of program development in my time, and the way it's set up, it just really feeds community. It feeds this community, and I hope that the council will support it in any way it can. My other thing I would like to talk about a little bit is the Hibernia Firehouse. I've been a lifelong resident around this area, but and I've watched as everything has changed over many years, and I've watched New Hope, much to my chagrin, become very moneyed and lost a lot of character in the way that it's been developed helter skelter. And the Hibernia Firehouse is a beautiful building, an absolute gem of a building also. I'm concerned about the way that it is being disposed of. And I hope that the city is looking carefully. It's operated as a nonprofit for many years. And so, and the city has spent money to fix it and to maintain it. And that money is, I mean, the building to me, in my mind, is that building is, at least the city has a part of it. And it should not be sold quickly or without quick, clear looking at how the funds are going to be used. If it is sold, those funds should come to, a good amount of that should come to the city. I mean, it's not legal for people who are on a nonprofit board to profit on. Anyway, I just think you have a gold mine here, and I hate to see it go away. And I hope, even the idea of going up to the farm is a great idea, but staying in Hibernia is just, it's so beautiful. It's such a pristine gem that you're not, once that's gone, it's gone. And I think that it's worthwhile for the town council and for the legal department to very closely look at how this deal is going down. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary Barry Friedman. I live at 37 Paris Street. My husband Rich and I have lived in Lambertville for 25 years. I'm not going to take the time to list all of the things that Soupçon Salon has done in its short existence. Others have already done that. Suffice it to say, I believe it represents a community center, although that is not in its name. A friend of mine asked me after the city purchased the Holcomb Clawson property, which I was fully in favor of, wanted to be sure Washington's headquarter building was saved and the city had control over what happened to the property. This is what my friend asked. What are members of the community getting from the city purchasing this property, besides saving the historic Holcomb House and the green space? I really couldn't answer. I know there was talk of a community garden and a park, but didn't have any definitive answers. If Soupçon Salon is allowed to lease the log cabin and continue their mission, members of the community would get a community center. I know we're only talking about a short-term lease, but I want to suggest another idea. Most people probably don't know that the Lambertville Historical Society does not own the James Wilson Marshall House. It's owned by the state of New Jersey, and the Historical Society rents it for a minimal amount each year. By the way, I'm not currently on the board. I'm not representing them. I've been on the board and I'm currently an active volunteer with the society, and I chair the Archives and Acquisitions Committee, have for a number of years. So I've done a lot of research, including a presentation several years ago on Phyllis Narduzzi that included saving the James Wilson Marshall House. So I know that this is the agreement that they have. Back in the 60s and early 70s, the Lambertville Historical Society signed a long-term lease, 25 years, with the state to rent the Marshall House for $1 a year. But they were responsible, the Historical Society was responsible for maintaining the building, renovating it and maintaining it. They have to get permission from the state when they are doing major work. Of course, the lease has been renewed a couple of times since then. The Historical Society is able to apply for grants to help with the maintenance. And of course, they hold the house tour and the plein air auction to help raise money for that and other things. So I just wonder if this model might work for the city-owned log cabin at Holcomb Park. Perhaps we could start with a shorter term lease to see how it works with the Soup Sans Salon organization and for the community. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I know a lot of you know. I am retired, been in the Garden Drive and the daycare center. I'm speaking for free ride, which is great because logistic care does not take me where I need to go. And free ride takes me to the doctor's appointments. They take me to go do my laundry, shopping. I need, and since I am disabled, I need help. And they do, I call them and they will take me where I need help. I'm just speaking for that because they are needed here. I'm glad they're helping. Thank you.
That's not good job. That's not good. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so, sure.
Hi, everybody. I'm here as an anti-SUPCON salon extremist. I'm against all the community, Sean Ellis especially.
And then we have your name, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm Ryan Spree.
And what's your address, Mr. Spreen?
My address?
Yes, we
My
require.
phone number too?
No, I do not.
37 Clinton Street.
I got it.
Good evening, everybody. This is a reference to 19-2023 to amend the ordinance for the mechanic and music machines, music machines, amusement devices, and vending machines. If you don't know me, I'm Ryan Spreen. I own Spreen Mortgage in town, and I have recently opened up Delview Arcade Club right across the street. You can all see it. In early 2022, I'm the one that actually brought to the mayor's attention the antiquated current ordinance and recommended it to be updated to modern day, which has ignited this decision that we're going through tonight, or at least starting the conversation for it. Modern day means to me to research what other New Jersey counties and townships have done or had to do in the state of New Jersey, and in turn come up with a fair and reasonable decision based on those findings. And if that research has not been done, I am happy to do that for everyone. I'm happy to do it. Mercer County, for example, Hamilton Township abolished their ordinance about 8 years ago. They decided it was a nuisance fee. There is only one town left in Mercer County that actually has licensing fees. That town has a $60 site fee and a $30 per game. All the other townships carry no fee. These ordinances were created to address bingo machines that were used for gambling many moons ago, and it was not created for private social clubs or businesses where their main source of income is for preservation, sustainability. Simple analogy, a laundromat in town. So I see the revisions that are recommended stating an arcade offering redemption prizes needs to file an application with the Legalized Games of Chance Control Commission, as well as Lambertville in the state of Jersey. And this simply is not true. Only games of chance, not games that offer play to you win. So in another paragraph, I see that it states any gambling devices are prohibited in Lambertville, but in the same breath, games of chance, which is gambling, require applications to 3 entities. I also noticed under prohibiting gambling, there's an add-on stating consumption of alcohol beverages is not permitted. So I also noticed another recommendation that 4 or fewer mechanical devices or amusement devices are subject to the zoning laws of the city of Lambertville. So I'm just a little bit perplexed. I just want to find out what this all means. All of it, and I'm not being aggressive, just saying all of it seems very ambiguous to me. And in my humble opinion, feels like I'm taking a little personally, because it feels like this ordinance is addressed directly to me and specific to me. What I'm seeing in these new recommendations feels like quick retaliations, which only seem to add to this overwhelming feeling that my beloved little city is working hard against me. A small local business owner, while attempting to do something very special for the kids and the families and the fellow local residents. I didn't do this for the money. I certainly have paid a lot of money to get where I'm going, and I just need a little help, and I feel like I'm getting a lot of resistance. And this is just one of many things. So since this ordinance is obviously being addressed specifically for me, I would ask that I am involved more in the process and not just in my 3 minutes. I'm not your. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Cars. I am at 52 Delaware. I'm just here to thank you for considering the lease to continue to do the work at Soupson. I'm an artist, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a theater artist, producer, and playwright, and actor, storyteller. I believe that stories bring us empathy, community. They bring a collective sense to our humanity that scientists don't always take care of. They ask questions and answer questions. And Soupson provides space for artists like me to do our work and continue to do our work. I grew up in Hunterdon County. I'm from East Amwell. I spent 15 years in New York City, trying to find community, trying to find space to do the work I did. And I found small glimpses of that in a city like New York. It was expensive. And the pandemic brought me back to the county with my family, my children, and I found Soupson. And I'm able to do work and not only do work that I can afford to do and to bring to our community, but that people can come and see and not have to pay $120 for a Broadway ticket. I want to bring a theater to this community. We don't have one in Lambertville, and I feel like we really need one. And Soupson is the beginning. So thank you for supporting us. That's pretty much all I have to say. Have a good evening. My name is Kelly Golding, I'm 21 Belvedere Avenue. And I don't have a lot to say, but I also wanted to thank you for considering the lease agreement for Soupson Salon. It's definitely been a big part of my life as a musician, as someone who's kind of grown to love this town. And I just think it's a really special time because I think there's, I know Jake mentioned Flemington DIY, there's also the River Rat and Point Pleasant and there's Soupson Salon. There's like all of these kind of small grassroots organizations coming together to really support art. And I think that's especially important when like this gorgeous part of the country is kind of becoming like inaccessible to a lot of people, like to a lot of artists, regardless of how old you are, what your interests are. It's just like very hard to have space to, like really create. And I think that it just adds so much value to the city. So I guess I just kind of want to make the point that I think there's an alignment between like the municipality and kind of being able to provide these spaces for people to gather, do civic work, and I think also art. Because I think, that's one of the things that like drew me to this area. Yeah, so anyways, thank you for considering it.
Hi, my name is Michael Marciano, and Jordy Moff and I live at 33 Lincoln Avenue, Cottage Hill. Now, we both moved here about 4 years ago from New York City. And I just want to say, I feel it would be a huge mistake if you let Iberia be sold to someone else, and if you let Soupson go away. Because growing up in New York, it's a process. And it's funny how someone started to mention that, where things were always sold at the highest bidder. My father told me in 1960 that beautiful Penn Station being destroyed, people were in tears. And that's what I've seen. I mean, the city has changed. I mean, we both love living here. But one thing we did find was the lack of community and culture as we know. And 8 months ago, we found Soupson and our lives changed. All the people we met, meeting artists, we play music. We've met people to play music with, and I just feel this is such an essential part of this city. And if you let this go, you don't know right now what the cost will be, but years from now, you look back and you'll see that. So there's something that you should have done your best to preserve. And I'm speaking of both the Hibernia space and Susan, because my personal opinion, from what I can see, is that the farm space, while it's better than nothing, it doesn't have a central location that Hibernia does. So that's it. You want to say something? Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Billy Fries, 67 North Union Street, Lambertville. I'm just going to say a quick few things. I just wanted to add my voice mainly. As an immigrant and a person who doesn't have a lot of family, Soupçon has changed my life and given me an opportunity to meet people. Just like everybody said, my children can come there and watch me play music. And it's beautiful and it's very, very valuable to this community. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Jeff Klein, 22 South Union Street. Everybody knows me because I always wear this hat. But I'm taking the hat off tonight out of real respect that I have for the flag of Lambertville. I think that, or was that a Jersey flag? Jersey flag. The mayor and council, I have a lot of respect for you guys and the love you have for Lambertville and the dedication you have to doing the right thing for Lambertville. I also have a lot of respect for all the people that come out. I know most of them. And all the love and respect you guys have for Lambertville and the fact that you all want to make the right decisions and do the right thing. Sometimes that's not easy. You know, there's a lot of different factors that come into play. One of them, not the smallest of which is money. Sometimes you got to go a little bit further than just the money when you're doing things that involve the city of Lambertville. And you guys know that. You've come across that before. And you've rose to the challenge and hopefully have done the right thing. Sometimes it's hard to do though. But I would suggest when it comes to Soupçon Salon and the Hibernia, that you do everything that's possible to keep it going. Because Sean and his crew down there have created a great environment and all the things he said. That he went through the laundry list, as was said before, of all the things that they have done over the past couple of years down there. And he didn't really say all the things that they did for kids. And they got some guitars from me, like donated, and they gave them out to people, and they had all kinds of functions down there, and they continue to have. And if they can't continue where they are there, hopefully the council will see fit to let them exist in another location because they're good for Lambertville. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Janine McGregor, 161 Swan Street. Real quick, I'll just say I just am here to support Soupçon as well. You heard concrete examples from Sean about some of the great things they've done and the projects that they're doing and everything that they've undertaken. But aside from that, you know, every time I'm there at Soupçon, it kind of reminds me of why Lambertville is special. It's this kind of old school type personal connection that we're sort of losing in this online world. And when you see young kids there, it's especially heartening because they're like remembering, they're seeing what it was like to just talk to people that you don't know and become friends with them face to face. So I just ask that you please help them and try to keep an open mind for solutions. You know, I would love to be able to have more relevant comments, but I don't know where the city stands on this. I don't know what you guys are thinking. I know the way that things work, it's hard in this kind of a forum for you to sort of, and the rules that govern what you do, for you to discuss things with them openly because of, you know, whatever Robert's rules or regulations. So I would just, I guess, I would ask you to work with them and to try to find out what, you know, if you have concerns, try to work with them and find out if there's other solutions that that you can come up with. So really, that's it. Please support Soupson. And if you have any questions, I'm sure they'd be happy to talk about some solutions with you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Leland Carlton. I grew up around here. I went to Lambertville in the 80s as a kid in elementary school, and I was never good at team sports when I was a kid. I always felt a bit out of place. Unfortunately, I was able to find music. And I remember even back in the 90s when Jeff Klein was doing shows at the Hibernia Firehouse, how important that was and what a great sense of community and feeling it gave me as a kid. So I think it's something really worth thinking about preserving. And I know seeing Sean Ellis and Soupson community and how much it's helped out people in the community around here, it would be really a big mistake, I think, to not support that. And I'm just going to end on this. We have a very horrible epidemic going on in this country with violence and shootings, and we need places where teenagers can do artistic things and form friendships and communities with people so that this horrible epidemic doesn't continue to happen. So please think about that. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hope. I'm an artist in town, 33 Church Street.
Your last name, please?
Caberto.
Thank you.
Yes, I own Scrambled Gallery in New Hope, Pennsylvania. So basically what I just want to bring to your attention was I'm in total favor of Soupson Salon. It's an amazing, like somebody said, gem in this community. As a local business owner, and I'm from here, born and raised. My grandfather was from New Hope and my grandmother was from Lambertville. So it's cool because I get the best of both worlds almost, and it's a beautiful thing. But something I see every day as a business owner in New Hope is a lot of people complain that unfortunately the city has gone downhill in the sense of, I mean, with all due respect, there's 4 skincare places about to be open. It loses its charm when beautiful community centers and artists don't get that ability to create. Everyone loves New Hope and this area because it's a town for artists by artists. And I use that model for my business. I would like to provide safe spaces for people to gather and to be able to freely create and express oneself. And I feel like Soupson absolutely does that. It is so inclusive, it is so beautiful, and it would be such a shame to see something like that happen on the Lambertville side, because as I'm watching it happen in New Hope with a lot of the development and a lot of things have gone more commercial and money, and that's not something everybody has, is the inclusivity. I hear all the time from people coming outside of town to people in town, the locals. There needs to be more focus on the locals here, and on the Lambertville side, I'm so thankful that I live on the Lambertville side because I truly feel Lambertville highlights that so much more, does such a better job at having things for the local businesses and the local people who live here, and Soupson being one of them. So I just wanted to say, as somebody who sees that in my daily life, and just hearing the other side of that and what happens when you take that away, I just wanted to stress how important I truly feel community spaces like this exist and that they continue to shine, because Lambertville is a gem and it's a place in the world like no other. And it would be such a shame to see that that not exist anymore. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody.
Jeffrey DePoy, South Franklin Street, Lambertville. I think that Hibernia gets right in touch with people very directly. In a town now, it seems like every restaurant is valet parking. All our local places to eat are now really expensive. This, I think, is going to be in touch with the heart of the people. And I think it's a special opportunity and it's unique. And that helps to make Lambertville special and unique. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eric Storson, 67 South Main Street. Like Billy here, I'm an immigrant to this community and this country. One of the things that we struggle with at home is that all the young people are moving out of the districts. They're moving towards bigger cities and stuff like that. one of the things that struck me with Lambertville is that young people like this place, they want to stay here. And when I moved here, after moving from New York, which was the first place to live here, I was immediately struck by how inclusive everybody was, how there is a genuine community, there is a scene there. And the scene is like, that's a legacy, that's something that the town can live off of for many years to come, and it's very important to cultivate. And yeah, full support, for me at least.
Hi, my name's Philomena Hanks. I live at 56 Buttonwood Street. I'm the vice president of Soupçon Salon, and I'm just here to say thank you for considering the application. You've heard from many people because we have a distributed leadership model. So it's not just one person that's running it, although Sean shared a lot of details. It's actually a lot of people that join in and come up with ideas, events, and things like that. But that being said, we do have a governance structure. We have 6 board members, and I forwarded you the bios during the meeting, so you can check those out to help you inform your decision. And these are all professionals, dedicated people who have participated in the city. You know, I've served on the planning board. I led the city's Pennies Against the Pipeline committee. I've been on the school board. I was the vice president of the school board. And that's not just me. The people on the board, Parks and Rec, Cable Advisory, these are all people who participate in the government regularly. So please take a look at those bios. And I would welcome the opportunity for our leadership to meet with you and discuss this further to help fill in any gaps and help you understand our mission a little further. So thank you again for considering the application.
Hi, I'm Kate O'Hare. I'm from Point Pleasant, Pennsylvania. That's where I live. It's where I grew up. I strongly value the communities of the Delaware River Valley, Thankful being one of them. And when I think about Lambertville, I think about a place where you can freely, where the community freely expresses itself. And I think that Soupçon embodies that more than anything else I've experienced in Lambertville. And just on behalf of the music that they've allowed to come through, I just wanted to say that there are bands touring from that have and are continuing to tour from across the world, across the country, out of state, and they want to play in Lambertville, New Jersey, not New York City, not Philadelphia. They want to play in Lambertville because they want to play at Soupçon Salon. And I just think that's really special in and of itself, but also all of the individual experiences that happen at just their shows. Like everything else, that laundry list everyone is reiterating of Sean's, like I didn't know about most of that. Most of what I am aware of at the Soupçon Salon community is the music scene, and just every experience that every individual has of every show is like gives me goosebumps. I've been brought to tears with joy before because I just see people light up and a lot of people have been like run down, depressed and whatever, just like beaten up by like circumstances in life. And they come to these shows at Soupçon Salon, which requires an actual physical space for it to happen. There's a lot they can do as an organization without space, but there's a lot that they need an actual physical space for. And I don't know how to measure the value other than just expressing, like I didn't really want to say anything, but I just feel indebted with gratitude for, it's just like, I don't know, I just call it magic, because I don't know what else to call it. It's like, it's not a dollar sign value. There's like an essence of life that people I see and have experienced at events at Soupçon Salon with these people that they don't have to create it. They don't have to do what they're doing, but they do it, and it just increases the value of life to everyone. And I don't know, I just want to say that.
Other people online, looks like we're done.
Cindy, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Am I super loud? Sorry.
No, it's appreciated.
So first to the council, I'd like to thank each of you and to the mayor for responding to.
Name and address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cindy Sternfeld, 27 North Franklin Street. I want to thank each of you for responding to my email last week. I can't be there because I'm out of state. With the help of Sue Barnaby, if it's all right, I'd like to present a petition to the council. The petition is signed by 100 residents and it relates to the upcoming resolution vote on the Route 179 concept plan. It requests more information, public input, and further consideration of other options prior to any vote. The plan itself seeks to lessen vehicle collisions at the intersection of Route 179 and Bridge Street. This is a dangerous intersection and it should be addressed, but this plan will remove the first 45 feet of existing parking on the southernmost portion of North Franklin Street. I'm talking about the stretch of road near the old Lambertville Hotel or Funkin' Junk. This is being done in a neighborhood that's been developed with very little consideration of its residents over the years. I've looked at the diagram, I've seen the plan, and I'm not even sure I understand how it will fix the problem. I live on this first block of North Franklin Street. When I moved here, the corner of North Franklin and Church Street was a permit parking lot. When the city sold the lot, the owner generously let us park there at no cost. Recently, 3 townhomes were added on this lot. Each has 3 bedrooms, but only 1 parking space. I love my new neighbors, and I wish that the plan for their approval would have required 2 spots per home, but it didn't, adding more neighbors who were competing for less parking. When the old Lambertville Hotel was sold, apartments were added and townhomes were built. In that case, though, parking spaces were added on the property, but not enough. So residents also there have to park on the street. All of these residential units have been added within a 1-block area. Recently, Deanna's was sold and T54 took its place. It's a nice place and the owner is great. But where Deanna's was frequented mostly by locals who walk to dine, T54 draws customers from many other towns who drive here. I watch them. They drive up, they park in the few spots that T54 has, but the overflow for that restaurant is again on the street. In short, parking has become much more difficult. When I moved to Lambertville, I knew I was moving to a city. I expected to park a distance from my home sometimes. I expected to double park and unload my groceries sometimes. But now this is more and more the norm, and this proposal will make it worse. We're lucky that Charlie Garofino lets us park in his lot overnight when no other parking can be found. It's a lifesaver, really, but it necessitates walking across 4 lanes of traffic at night, and it's not really safe. I'm not even quite sure how long this option will be available if it's needed by more people more frequently. In an effort to decrease risk to some, this plan increases burden to many others. Is there a plan to offset the risk and the burden? Sue and I bought our home thinking that we would retire here. The house was within our budget and seemed the perfect place to grow old. The home we bought had ample parking. The home we live in now doesn't. And this resolution, if it passes, will make it worse. This lessens my property value and potentially our ability to sell should the need arise. I agree that something should be done, but it seems unfair to choose a solution that impacts our safety and quality of life and property value. Thanks. And if it's okay, Sue will give you the petitions. There's a copy for each of you and Cindy.
Thank you. So if you want to bring those and give them to Cindy, we'll.
I know Sean is left, supporting 27 West Lincoln Street. This is not about this, but Susan is also a great place for people to get together, talk about politics, talk about individuals, talk about anything. It's a great place. You meet people, everybody pitches in. Nobody cares about, this is too heavy, that's too heavy. And that's very rare. As a teacher, you see that in school, you see that in certain places in the churches and synagogue, but I haven't seen it in town. Like, it's on, so I hope you can say that that's it. Petition for the other matter.
Next.
Same Jeffrey for you.
No.
I'm just wondering, can we hear everybody as well as we just heard that person speak? Because I can't hear.
We announced at the beginning of the meeting that unfortunately the microphones weren't working.
Okay.
So we're speaking as loudly as we can, and all right, we're going to move on.
Thank you.
Gina, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Can you guys hear me? Okay, it's very loud again. Sorry. I have a loud voice to begin with, so sorry. So Gina Fischetti, 116 Clinton Street. I'm calling in to voice my support of Lambertville entering into a lease with Soupçon Salon for the use of the log cabin in accordance with Soupçon Salon's mission. The property was bought in the Clausen site was bought in 2021. And to my knowledge, there has been no plan for its use or disposition formally. And when the city purchased the Clausen site, there were a lot of things said about its potential uses. And community space and art space was definitely one of them. Allowing Soupçon Salon to use it temporarily is infinitely better than it sitting vacant, and would also instill some amount of public trust in the city's ownership of the property. I also wanted to comment, although it wasn't my original intention, on Mr. Spreen's comments, because they were not lost on me and they should not be lost on the mayor and council. We all like to talk about our community and how much we love it, but absent deliberate action by the city to support endeavors like Soupçon Salon, like the creation of Delview Arcade, and there's other examples too that I won't get into, Lambertvillians will no longer be able to voice these accolades. I'm sure the mayor and council want to support spaces for our community to gather, socialize, discuss all different types of issues, and to just have fun. Spaces that are open to everyone. And I encourage you to support the continued existence of Soupçon Salon by entering into a lease, and also Delview Arcade and other types of businesses that are available to our community. Thank you.
A motion to close the public comment period. Second. Thank you. All in favor of closing the public comment period, please say aye. Aye. Carries. Moving on. We have a resolution this evening, resolution number 82-2023. This is a resolution to amend the 2023 budget. Now I need to ask the city clerk to read the resolution number 82-2023 in full into the record as is required by state law. Correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
City of Lambertville, County of Hunterdon, resolution number 82-2023 to amend the 2023 budget. Whereas the local municipal budget for the year 2023 was approved on April 20th, 2023. And whereas the public hearing on said budget has been held as advertised. And whereas it is desired to amend said budget. Now therefore be resolved by the governing body of the city of Lambertville, County of Hunterdon, that the following amendments to the 2023 budget are approved. Okay, so it's public works, other expenses from $41,392.97 to $39,642.97, which is a net of a minus of $1,750. Solid waste other expense, $207,540 to $206,790, which is a net of a loss of $750. Accumulated leave compensation S&W, which is salary and wage, from $38,000 to $34,850, which is a loss of $3,150. Court from $12,860 to $12,110, which is a net loss of $750. Police other contracts from $55,375 to $54,375, which is a net loss of $1,000. Social Security from $180,000 to $172,064.27, which is a net loss of $7,935.73, for a total of $15,335.73, which is cut from the overall budget. Be it further resolved that 2 certified copies of this resolution be filed forthwith the Office of Division of Local Government Services for certification of local municipal budgets. So amended.
Thank you. I just make one request. I think that I would prefer to call it a net reduction rather than a net loss. So let me just make a note of that. I appreciate that. At this time, I would ask the council for comments or questions.
Mayor, I'd just like to take an opportunity to thank really everyone on the council, especially Council President Stegman. I also, not a member of the council, but I want to call out Michael Toulis for their efforts and teamwork on working through these reductions. I also want to acknowledge your collaboration and support, Mayor, as well as my fellow council members. I also don't want to overlook all the people that I know worked very hard on this to make this happen in a 2-week time period since we tabled. So that would be Cindy, Lindsay, Sue Baycorn, Christy Eric, Ryan Gerber, who works with Michael, and our auditor, whose name I do not know. I'm very sorry.
Frida Warren, correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so it was really a collaborative effort. I really appreciate it. We did this in response to community request, and it did work out in a positive light. And I'm really happy that we were all able to pull together to make this happen. I also want to thank the people from the community that reached out to me. I know they reached out to others. Different points of view, and I appreciate hearing from everyone, because when I hear different points of view, it really gives me an opportunity to think it all through. So that's what I wanted to say.
Before I ask other comments, do you want to take just a minute to kind of work through and tell us a little bit about your thinking and the reductions on these lines? I know you worked with Michael, but I don't know if you have anything specific that you'd like to point out about it.
If I may interrupt, I asked Michael earlier to do that for us.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
So, because he's the numbers guy,
That's right.
and, if you could speak to how those figures were come by, and will that affect services going forward? I will also say that, the council respects the hard work that our city government, our city employees do, including the two cities on my right, not excluding others. Oh, and Sue as well, and she's here, Lindsay and oh, so that would be you. But and we didn't, when we looked through this, we decided that we were not going to do anything with salary and wages, any cuts in salary and wages, because we respect the people that work for us. They work hard, and I made that clear early on that we weren't going to touch the S&W, because that's a much bigger conversation, and in the future perhaps, but at this point, they work and earn their money every day, and we are committed to make sure that we can do raises as we have been doing, and retain important people to do important jobs and be compensated for it. So thank you, Cindy. Let's see, I remembered your name. So Michael, if you could go through that for us. Thank you.
Sure. Cindy did read in the resolution in the aggregate. I can give a little more detail as to the actual accounts that were reduced. So assuming all the other expenses, public works, maintenance, and other equipment was reduced by $1,000. Public works, clothing and uniforms reduced by $500. Public works road repairs reduced by $250. Solid waste clothing uniforms reduced by $750. Accumulated leave compensation, which is a salary and wage category, was reduced by $3,150. Court postage and delivery charges reduced by $500. Court office computer supplies reduced by $250. Police other contractuals was reduced by $1,000. Social Security was reduced by $7,935.73. And so that was a total net budget impact reduction of $15,335.73. None of these lines exceeded a 9% reduction, and that's it.
Will you just clarify that what seems like a large amount to Social Security? Will you just explain what that is for everybody?
Sure, in the current year fund, we reserve an estimate on what the full Social Security charges will be for employees. We all have, we all have to pay our Social Security tax as an employer for the employees. So that's a projection based on the current workforce, current salaries. And so we reduced that amount in anticipation that we will need it.
Other questions or comments from council?
No, but similar to what, everyone else said, I do really appreciate all the time and effort that the mayor and everyone on the budget committee and like all the time that he spent. It was a difficult decision to table it last meeting, and I know that there were a lot of residents that did reach out that were not necessarily happy about that, and then there were also an equal amount that were, and we have to make a lot of difficult decisions as council, and I think the important takeaway from this is that the past 2 weeks, as Councilwoman Lambert talked about, it's been very collaborative, and I think that we can continue on that trend to accomplish great things for the city. So I'm appreciative of all the time and effort that everyone has spent, and I think we were able to find a little bit of savings. Again, not happy we're on that list, New Jersey towns that have increased taxes, but they're really good. There's not a lot to cut here, and hopefully with the increased amount of reimbursements we're going to be getting from the government, hopefully it comes here soon, and again, there's opportunities there. So thank you for all the work there.
Yeah, it sounds like a broken record, thanking everyone, but it really was a good effort, and we're all kind of happy with the results and the input and the dialogue back and forth with the community. And I know that, we're kind of committed to, better process going forward, trying to keep looking at, our tax situation, and certainly work on some cost saving ideas. As one of the things that Michael pointed out is, selling some of those properties will really help our fiscal situation. So as much as we can, speed that up and keep that going, we're committed to doing that as well.
Thank you. I would just agree with you, agree with everybody about all the hard work involved, and also Councilwoman Kaminsky's point about better process going forward. I think that I'm certainly open to whatever recommendations the council has in next year's process. I would really love to see somebody from the council on the finance team to attend regular meetings and be a part of those conversations going forward. So I will ask that question again in November. Hopefully the council will be able to accommodate the schedule. I just think the last point I have to make about this is that, we all work as a team, and I don't know if I made this point in the last meeting, but I think it's an important point to make. We do work as a team, and I do hear, Michael and Cindy and Sue and Christy explain various elements of the budget. At the end of the day, I always make the decision, right? And so it's important for me to reiterate that point with the council sort of going forward, right? So if we have somebody on the finance team, I love input. I want to hear it. At the end of the day, I have to make the best decision for the budget based on the amount of time I spend with the budget. And I would just lastly point out that, the budget is also not just a question of plugging numbers in January, February, March, and getting it approved and adopted. It's also the maintenance of the budget from day to day, week to week, right? So, we fix these line items because we have historical reference points, and because we know our department heads who are responsible people with with the public funds. So it's important to note that the budget is not just a one-time thing. It really happens all year long. I think maybe in like July and August, we sort of just kind of put it aside a little tiny bit, but back in September, we're meeting with all the department heads and kind of making sure that everybody's closing out the year strongly. So I just want to thank everybody for your work.
Well, thank you.
And at this point, I would open this up for a public comment. So this public comment period will just be on the amendments to the budget. It will not be on anything else.
Hi, Judy Gleason, 86 North Union Street. I just wanted to thank the council and the mayor for looking again. That was what many of us wanted you to do. And I didn't expect there to be huge cash that came out of it. I think this is a very responsible reduction. It's more than I thought would even happen, but I had to think looking again might get us somewhere, and I really appreciate the fact that you did that. And I really appreciate the seriousness with which you are taking our need to always look again, because this is a tough, it's going to continue to be tough. The second thing I would say is the process. Many of us hope that the process has more looking starting at the beginning rather than in the narrow times toward the end. And I think, and I mentioned this to you, Mayor, when I talked with you, as a citizen who went to one of the hearings that takes place during the summertime, I don't know if this can be done. I don't know if the process above us allows this, but we were not even allowed to ask any questions as department heads were giving information to the budget consultant. And I don't mean to argue or yell about it, but asking questions sometimes makes everybody look more carefully at what they're doing and also tell us more so that we understand more. So if that's possible, I would ask you to look at it. But mostly I just want to thank everybody for all the hard work you put into it, because I know you did, and we all know you did. So thank you.
Anyone else in the room? Anyone online? Okay, I have a motion to close the public comment period on this amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, great. All right, and now I would ask for a motion to approve the amendments of the 2023 budget as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
And a second? Second. May I have a roll call, please, Cindy?
Councilwoman Kaminsky.
Yes.
Councilwoman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Wide,
Yes.
Council President Stegman,
Yes.
Mayor No.
Yes. Right, moving on to the adoption of the 2023 budget. There's no, the hearing on this has been closed. There's no further conversation about it. I would just note before I ask for a motion to adopt it, that if for some reason this budget is not adopted, then we need a resolution to authorize estimated tax bills. So just an FYI. Is there a motion to adopt the 2023 budget as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Can I please have a roll call vote?
Councilwoman Kaminsky.
Yes.
Sorry, I just hit the wrong button.
Oh.
Councilwoman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Wide,
Yes.
Council President Stegman.
Yes.
Mayor No.
Yes. Moving to resolution number 84-2023. This resolution authorizes the city of Lambertville to accept a sub-grant award of the federal fiscal year 2023 of the Emergency Management Performance Grant and Emergency Management Agency Assistance. Are there any questions about this?
I think just to clarify, I think for the public, we apply for this grant annually to fund our OEM to personnel, right?
That's correct.
Right, and it's for, it's a year in arrears, so this would be.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And it runs July to June.
Yeah.
It's a wonky thing, but
Right.
in essence, it's a year.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great, the motion carries. Next is resolution 85-2023. It's a resolution of the governing body to certify the application to the state of New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection for the Water Quality Management Plan for the LMUA North Union Street Pumping Station. This is a resolution to approve the water quality management plan for the LMUA, which was damaged during Hurricane Ida, and is in need of repairs to make it flood proof. Questions, comments, motion?
Motion.
Okay,
So
second.
moved.
Second. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. The next one is resolution number 86-2023. It's a resolution to authorize Catherine McLaren as a signer of the court account. McLaren was hired by the city and has started working as the court administrator, or not quite. Next week she'll start, but we need to add her as a signer to the account. It's fairly straightforward. Unless there's a question or comment, I would accept the motion to adopt it.
So
Second. We'll say Karen second. Okay. All in favor of adopting resolution number 86-2023, please say aye.
Aye.
Next is a resolution number 87-2023. This is a resolution to amend resolution number 35-2023. A resolution of the city of Lambertville, county of Hunterdon, conditionally designating K. Hovnanian Homes LLC as the redeveloper of the property identified as the Lambertville High School redevelopment area, block 1073, lots 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 32, 33, and 33.01. Block 1090, lots 4 and 5, and block 1091, lots 1 and 1.01, pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law, NJSA 40A:12A-1, etc. Any questions or comments from the council on this? We'll just note for the public that if this resolution is adopted, we will continue to have conversations with K. Hovnanian Homes about the possible redevelopment of the high school redevelopment. So there are no comments from the council. May I have a motion, please?
So, second.
All right, all those in favor of adopting resolution number 87-2023, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 88-2023. This resolution authorizes the installation of speed humps / cushions on Lambert Lane as recommended by the traffic committee, created as a part of the application for a retail cannabis store at 80 Lambert Lane. Yeah.
I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay. Bill, you leave the desk? Back and going.
Yeah.
All right, so, thanks.
You could have pushed the seat button.
You check button. So this is part of the traffic committee was created as a part of the condition of the resolution granted by the planning board for Jersey Girls. And met on various occasions and are making this recommendation to the governing body for approval. Are there any questions about this from the council members?
Does this represent the sum total of modifications or
Mitigation efforts?
mitigation?
Yes,
That's from the planning board, from the traffic study?
it does. Yes. Any other questions? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to adopt resolution number 88-2023.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Councilwoman Kaminsky, you may return to the dais wherever you are. Okay.
She thought it was going to take.
Where is she? She talking to Sarah?
Having a meeting.
Lindsay will go there.
I need to go out. That's right. All the water.
2 minutes.
Right, moving on, ordinances, first reading. The first is ordinance number 19-2023. This is an ordinance to amend the Lambertville City Code 2014, Chapter 5, mechanical music machines, music devices, and vending machines. So this is a this is a proposed amendment to the city's ordinance for vending machine licensing. It was very outdated. It hadn't been touched in probably decades, right?
I'm gonna say from the 1990s.
So,
Was the last time it was really looked at.
okay. So it was outdated and brought to our attention by Mr. Spreen, who spoke here a little while ago. And you know, the city tries to review ordinances, you know, generally. In this case, we did review some ordinances of other municipalities, and included some of their elements from the ordinances into this amendment. This ordinance was amended by the city clerk and shared with members of the governing body and the city attorney. The changes are highlighted in yellow, where the text is a different color, just to denote kind of what, you know, what we started sort of doing this kind of, you know, so.
I guess to let people know what's
What the
new and
changes
what's
are.
remaining
Right.
and what's changed.
Thank you.
Instead of reading many pages of the document at night, to thank Cindy and Lindsay, because they move very quickly to make this happen. So once.
So, is there, are there any questions from the council as we consider introducing this?
This is my understanding is, that, well, the way I read this is it's a generic
Correct.
ordinance that would apply to anyone, any entity that wanted to operate these devices in the city, correct?
Correct. We have about 6 different entities who either have pool tables or the laundry room, you know, where they have those type. Phillips Barber has a vending machine. So this really is across the board. And just really want to note that we really didn't touch the fees, except for the one that was 10 cents to 25 cents. Council President Stegman suggested we make that $40 per machine.
Yeah.
And then the other was for circuses because it was $25, and I felt after all the cleanup from a circus that it probably deserved more than $25.
Yeah, I mean, the elephant poop is heavy.
And, you know, honestly, I don't, does the circus even exist anymore? I mean, Ringling went out of business a couple of years ago.
Actually, yeah, I mean, maybe. but
Oh, they don't have
that
the, they don't have the,
small-
they don't have the elephant, so
Right.
maybe
Well-
the fee is
Or
okay.
there's
I'll
a
see what I can
gumball
do.
machine.
Yeah.
That's what I
Gumball
really
machine
want.
at the circus? Wow.
Right.
Well, you know,
Gumball machine.
I remember when the traveling circus would come to town at Museum Field, but that's 20.
I remember
years
that,
ago.
Yeah, no, you're right. It
Yeah.
really was, but not so long ago, they had it up at the fairgrounds.
Yes, they did.
I don't think that they would come to us anymore. I don't know where they would go, but, you know, we do have the Clausen Farm. I don't know, so, or the
Leave it
Hopewell
in
They
Farm.
could put
Yeah.
gumball machines
So-
out there.
Holcomb
Very
Park.
easy.
The three ring circus.
Holcomb Circus.
Yeah, okay, the Holcomb Circus, got it.
Yes.
So the other thing I noticed, it seemed like, well, there was a big change on the mechanical music machine, but the most, I guess, repetitive change or the most prevailing change seemed to be around the type of payment and expanding it to more, shall we say, modern, you know, things that didn't exist 30 years ago as forms of payment. So,
That is the bulk of it, you are correct, and that was the impetus for this.
right.
And while we were doing it, we copied a lot from Somerville,
Mhm.
what they do.
Right.
And also, we did speak with Legalized Games of Chance Control Commission, who said anything that is a redemption, in other words, it's a game where you win something, win or lose something,
Mhm.
they have to also be registered with the state.
So,
that's
so,
what-
and to be clear, this is, this type of ordinance is pretty commonplace throughout New Jersey, is it not? Or, I mean, where applicable, right? There, like, there was mention that some places have abolished it.
I think that it was difficult to find places that had ordinances that
Okay.
actually allow vending machines. You know, I reached out to our 26 clerks in our municipality. Nobody had anything to send back. They don't allow.
Oh, they don't allow them?
No. So, you know, there are other places, I'm sure, throughout the state who allow them and don't license them. But we always have.
So, okay. So based on the benchmarking we did, they either have the ordinance, they either allow them and have an ordinance in place, or they don't allow the machines at all.
The ones that I spoke to,
Okay,
yes.
based on, yeah, your benchmark.
Yeah,
Okay,
because
thank
there's like 555 municipalities, I didn't speak for them all.
No, okay, thank you.
But I went to the League of Municipalities website, there's nothing on there. So I went we went to the internet, we looked up different places that had, you know, arcades or vending machines, and that's how we got to this.
Thank you.
Right, I have a motion to introduce on first reading ordinance number 19-2023.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Would just lastly note, this is the public hearing scheduled for this on June 15th, 2023. And I forgot to say, Michael, you should leave. You can go. All right, so thank you for being here. I just want to sit there and listen to all my announcements and everything else. So let him slip out with our gratitude for another job well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tonight. Moving on, pending ordinances, flood damage prevention ordinance carried to the June 15th session. Just we're still waiting back to hear, we're still waiting to hear from the DEP on the question we've asked twice now. I followed up via email with DEP and the Historic Preservation Office, and they're just going to have to call them and say, maybe please have an answer. So I fully expect that we will have an answer to that question before the June 15th meeting, and possibly be able to consider whatever that answer is and moving forward with hopefully adoption of the ordinance. Announcements. The primary election will be held on Tuesday, June 6th, 2023. Polls open at 6 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. The County of Hunterdon Board of Elections announced a voter resource center, an application to assist voters with finding information about the election. Do you have anything to add about?
Yeah, I mean, it's they give you a little QR code that you can, you know, just use your phone, and it will take you, if you have any questions about where you should go vote, you know, it will give you more direction and answer any other questions that you might have, like it was before the election, how late you can file to, you know, how late you can register, things like that.
Just a few words about projects. Short-term rentals, since we last met, I haven't done any work on this, I have to admit, with other things coming up. But one of the things I'll do at the June 15th meeting is I'm going to kind of lay out what my plans are for the summer, my summer work. We will only meet once in July and once in August. That worked really well for me last year in terms of freeing up a little bit of extra time, not preparing for a second meeting to do other things. So we're prioritizing my time over the summer to work on a couple of these, you know, ordinances that we've talked about, and I'll be ready to introduce them certainly by September and hopefully sooner. So I'll keep everybody updated on that. I'll make a more substantive update at the next meeting. Properties for sale, the 150 Swan Street update, the property did not sell, right?
It did not. They marketed really heavy.
Yeah.
It was, the report was in the meeting folder.
Yeah. We note that others are in consideration. Bill has advised us that we're almost ready to sell the following properties: 310 North Union Street, 113 Swan Street, and Route 179. Not the whole Route 179.
No.
We might. You know, wouldn't that'd be great. Maybe we get a couple $1 million and we could.
The property only has a block and lot number. It doesn't have an address.
Got it.
So it's
Where is
difficult.
it? I don't remember seeing Route 179. Where is it?
It's across from. It's across from the you know, there's.
Hancock Street?
Huh?
Is it by Hancock Street?
No, it's up further. It's more, I guess that would be, I'm bad with direction, guys. It's it's on Route 179, and it's right across from that complex that has the nail salon.
Oh,
So
yeah.
It's
Okay.
across the street, and there are. a couple
From Medicine
homes.
Shop, across from Medicine Shop?
Mhm.
But a little closer to us, because you're in West Hamlin, Medicine Shop.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, but it's really near there.
Yeah.
And how long?
Well, that's good. I mean,
Now
generally.
that-
50 acres.
Uh,
50 acres.
I could tell you all.
Susquehanna,
Very small.
it's small.
It's small. Bill, can you just explain a little bit about why this has been such a process and why it takes such a long time?
Sure, the city owns the tax sale certificates for these 3 properties. So we had to do tax sale foreclosures through the court process, which takes time. There's a lot of noticing requirements, a lot of service requirements that are involved in going through that process. So, and publication requirements as well, just so we can get as much notice as possible that the city's trying to foreclose on these properties. They're all vacant. There's no improvements on any of them. And they're all 310 North Union. There might be a question, but I think the other 2 are clearly undersized for development, but the 310 North Union is actually in between. I think the house was on fire and it was taken down in the past, so that's in between 2 existing houses. So you know, there's potential for a beneficial use there. So again, the process would be we have to get the final judgment for foreclosure. We haven't gotten that yet. We're a few weeks away from that, but once we have that, the city will report that. The city will own the properties, and then we can go through the process like the city did with 150 Swan Street, market them, see if there's takers. Ideally, you know, adjoining property owners would be the target audience for.
And we have been contacted by adjoining property owners on all 3 of these properties, people who are interested, they're contiguous. So the process might be a little different than going through like a max span.
Yeah, depending on how, you know, if we have the interest from the adjoining property owners, and like I said, these are undersized for development. There's a way we can avoid the auction process and do a private sale, just to be something to consider down the road.
Since the Swan Street property did not sell, what are the city's options on adding that to open space that we have?
Something I haven't looked into yet, but yeah, it's potentially. I mean,
because we're definitely not going to build on it.
This is the second time that we haven't had any bids at auction, so.
Is there any practical benefit to doing it as open space? You certainly can't access the property, it's so steep.
I don't know, I have to look at
Okay.
that, I'm not sure. But
Yeah,
We were actually wondering, Lindsay and I, if there was any type of mitigation you could do on that property. Because it's a very steep hill.
mitigating what?
Runoff, water.
It is, yeah.
You know, I don't know, you know, we only play engineer at the office, but
Well, yeah, and in fact, one of the drains from Cottage Hill comes down through that property, drains down through that property.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, maybe if we're gonna stormwater utility, we'll have the money. Just kidding. All right, thanks, Bill. Board appointments. So the following board appointments or following nomination. I'd like to appoint Michelle Glassberg as the second alternate on the planning board. Planning board, as some people may or may not know, does have, for example, a member of the Environmental Commission that sits on it, that reviews applications on behalf of the Environmental Commission, just kind of keeping an eye on stormwater or potential environmental issues. And, you know, following all this discussion that we've had recently about certified local government and protecting our historical resources, you know, I had a conversation with the Historic Preservation Commission, and we came up with this great idea to see if somebody on that commission was willing to serve on the planning board as an alternate to, you know, be mindful of what planning decisions may involve historic properties. So, you know, thought that would be nice and valuable to have a liaison between the two. So Michelle Glassberg has graciously offered to serve in that position, and I've forwarded her resume to the council. And I'd like to appoint her as alternate too. In so doing, what happens then is that we have a shift. Michelle Romeo, who was recently appointed as alternate 1 or as alternate 2, would move into the alternate 1 space, and Cynthia Yan, who was in the alternate 1 space, would move into the class 4 member. So, other questions from the council on this appointment? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to confirm the nominations. And a second, please.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on. Tucson Salon, proposed rental of the log cabin. I would just note that we obviously have a lot of public support for that. During the public comment period, I would just note for the record that I did receive 3 emails, one from Carolyn Gatois, one from Bob Lonsdale, and one from Mary Jane Legier, all strongly in favor of renting the log cabin to Tucson Salon. So just a little background on this. Sean contacted me. I don't have the correspondence right in front of me, but contacted me, let me know that they were losing their lease at the Hibernia, and we've had several conversations either on the telephone or via email about the potential that the city would consider renting the log cabin up at Fulton Park to the group. So I would certainly agree with many of the speakers tonight. I think there's been a real public value to this organization, and I think it's done well in the space that it has, where it has been located. So just note that for the record. I think it's been good for the city. And when we began our conversations, I tried to be as upfront as possible about the process. Unfortunately, we process like this. We're very process heavy in government at both the municipal level and everywhere else. So, this is not something that we can do by resolution. It requires an ordinance, and it requires kind of, a lot of information about what's possible. One of my initial concerns, and it remains a concern, frankly, is that Tucson Salon is looking for a temporary rental space, and I'm not sure when your date to leave is, but I know it's coming up. So, that's been a concern of mine because of this ordinance process, which takes 2 readings and a estoppel period. And also on the back end of that, the council has decided to subdivide the log cabin and the farm market and sell them. So, it's a concern. So it's a little bit of a concern for me in terms of the timing, right? So, if this moves forward, it's quite possible that, it would be a shorter term rental than you would really like. So, I just need to get that out there in front of this conversation because I think it's important, because I do feel as though that's an issue that we need to talk about. A couple of other things I will say, in regards to the log cabin itself, I did have Ken Rogers go up, take a look at the building and sort of measure it out. So we can understand what the load capacity is. There are, it's complicated. We can't just give you the building. I mean, there's a lot of kind of process stuff that has to happen on the city's end. And I just got this memo from Ken on yesterday, and I've distributed it to the council to take a look at. So at this point, I guess I would like to open this up for some conversation among the council. To hear, kind of talk to everybody a little bit individually, just sort of, kind of repeating our conversations. But we haven't had a chance to have a public conversation about this. So I wanted to see kind of what the council's thinking is and what concerns or questions or, what to say.
I'm happy to start. So I think the presentation, everyone that came today, it was, really emphasized that we don't have a lot of community space here for groups in Lambertville. I know myself and my son was having his 8th birthday party. We were looking for a place to rent. We actually rented the 2nd floor of the Tucson firehouse, the Hibernian fireplace, to have my son's birthday party. So we are absolutely lacking community space here. I think regardless of what we do, we need to remember that and think about that, regardless of what happens here, because we need more community space. I think that's abundantly clear. And on the other hand, though, we certainly talked about the log cabin and the farm market, and we've had a lot of concerns about how much money we spent for it, and also paying for different things. And I think we did come to the conclusion we need to look at possibly selling the farm market and the log cabin. So I think the city, my personal preference is I think we need to look into see if we can make this work. We can understand that it might only be short term if we do end up selling that. But I also, understand from Ken's memo too, that there could be costs that the city has to incur in order to rent that out. And, obviously we can't lose money. We can't, spend money to, do some certain ADA things and then, end up selling it, a couple months later. So I think it's something we need to look at more. And I think my preference is if we can make it work, even if it's only short term and it's, not gonna financially hurt the city, I think that, we should consider that. Like the free ride, I forgot that's what, SUPCON does, and I know how much that's helped people that I know in the community, clients that I've had that have needed that. That's a really much needed service that they offer. And, when I look at the Fossil property, as you mentioned, what did the residents get when we bought this? Yeah, we got a lot of green space, but this is an opportunity to have the public use that property more. And so I think we should consider that.
And before we go to the next council person, Bill, can you just talk a little bit about kind of the requirements? I mean, Ken said, we've taken a look at Ken's memo and just talk a little bit about what you see as the requirements that we would need to meet to make this move forward.
Sure. Well, the ADA ones are the ones that jump out. I think those pose the biggest financial concern, I guess, is the way to describe it for the city. Emergency lights, exit signs, those are things that create a safe area for people to travel up there. And, without those, we would be concerned. It'd be dated, dark. When it's dark out, it would be dangerous to walk that way and create liability for the city if someone were to slip and fall. So those are things that I would say definitely have to be addressed. Egress plan, I believe what's contemplated or what has been contemplated is a different access point that gets all the way up right now. I believe the only really approved entry point is to get to the farm market. Anything going up from the farm market, it's gravel. I don't think it's completely, right? It's marked off where you can drive on it, but it's not what I would consider an improved roadway because it's based on its current condition. I don't know if that's changed.
It hasn't changed. In fact, it's worse than water coming down that gravel driveway. It needs to be graded before it can start sort of driving up there. Really, I think my car there once in a great while in the winter, but that's not very changed.
Yeah. So those are all things that the city, I think, definitely, I would recommend the city consider. The ADA, the city has to make reasonable accommodations. It doesn't mean that, based on what's there. I probably need a little bit more information about it. I mean, I've been in the log cabin. I understand the layout there. To open that to the public, and I understand this is a membership club, but to open it and have the city lease it out, I think there's probably some issues like the city would not be required to put in elevators or do significant, what I would consider significant, structural improvements, but there would have to be accommodations made to make it more accessible. That's for sure. So we probably need a little bit more information on that, but like the councilman said, that's probably the biggest cost driver in this. The balance of the memo. There's a question to some extent. Usually the local government is exempt from the zoning requirements. And I'll note that the RL zone where this property is located, there is a municipal use permit, which is a permitted use.
So would this fall under a municipal use because we're renting, the municipality's renting it? I mean, municipality is not technically using it.
That's the question, and
What does it make a difference if we rent out part of it versus all of it? If we kept some of ourselves, we would still have that municipal use. If we're retaining some of that property ourselves, but if we rent the entire log cabin out, I think it's harder to argue municipal use of that property.
Yeah, the early case law, just from the 50s, I'll just retry it because I think it's instructive. the need of a public building in a certain location ought to be determined by the federal, state, municipal authority, and its determination on the question if necessary or desirable location cannot be interfered with by local zoning ordinance. And, you know, it goes on to further say that a municipality must be addressing a public need within its authority, and its further refinement in that municipality's authority must be, quote, reasonably exercised in response to the public need. It's a little vague. You know, the local lands and buildings law allows for a direct lease to a nonprofit entity, provided the municipality can demonstrate that there's a public need being served. The other side of this is that you know, more recent case law has kind of laid out a test to kind of make a determination on what the public need is, and
Excuse me, Mayor, do we know what the time frame is? I know it's like an immediate need. It sounded like July, I'm just gonna put a stake in the ground, July 1 to when?
Well,
Do we-
it's,
do we know that?
you know, when I talked to Sean, it was you know, kind of a month to month. And some of that is, you know, I think you're active. I'm just gonna ask you a couple of questions, so if that's okay. You're actively looking for a space beside the log cabin, is that correct?
We're interested in, you know, all options. Yeah.
All right, so the lease would be, as obviously you're interested in moving in as soon as you could, but I mean, we had talked about a month-to-month lease, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, and so there's no clear expectation that you would be there for more than 4 months, say 5 months, I don't know. Ideally, you would, right? Because it's a great building and it's a great site, but you know, there can't be an expectation because we are going to be actively working to subdivide that site this year.
Yeah, do we-
I understand that. I just, oh, I'm sorry.
No, that, just adding to it maybe is, do we have an expectation on when we would need to, like, not vacate the property, but prepare the property for sale, you know,
That's
which could be September, you know, like, because we are trying to sell it and have the money in our pockets by the end of the year, so.
yeah, I mean, that's a concern because I think it's going to take some time to bring the structure itself and the access points to the structure into compliance. That's going to take a little while. Mayor said it has to be approved by ordinance, so that's going to take at least a month, if not more. But also, I want to point out, I just found the point that I wanted to emphasize. Some of the more recent case law on this topic, it's not directly on point, but it kind of focuses on use by the municipality for a government purpose. In addition, and that's one of the criteria. So not necessarily just a public purpose, but a government purpose. Again, broad, but something to consider. You know, I don't think that the way the zoning ordinance is drafted now, I'm not sure there's a clear permitted use for this type of use. We have to rely on that municipal use, and it's really, there's nothing directly on point that says, yes, this is allowed, or no, this isn't. So, but it would be somewhat concerned that, you know, that there's really nothing that we can point to allow this. So I just have to put that out there that, you know, that's my, you know, we could talk about this and we could probably make an argument both ways on this. That's just, you know, the nature of how the cases were written.
Couple of questions. Hey, Sean. Hey, Bill. Good. You know, the feedback is so positive to what you do, or what you have been doing. I'm glad to hear that you're looking at other spaces depending on what we finally decide. And I'll just throw a few spaces out. Maybe you have considered it or not, but There was somebody here that works for the Playhouse. I don't know if that person is still here.
She's not.
She's not.
They have a really big church space on Bridge Street. Right, that is, I wouldn't say it's underused because there was limits on what the current fire safety laws are, that they got approved for X amount. That really focuses what they do in that building, and what they do in that building is understanding, use it as rehearsal space or class space or something. So I certainly would reach out to them to see, since you have a board member that is works for the Playhouse or is involved with your organization and has an educational job for the Playhouse, to pursue that as a possible location. I know in town there are many larger properties like River Walk has space available.
Asking you that number.
Right.
Yes, they do have space available.
Yeah, and Spokes work up on the north end of town where the up by Elm Street, right? They're looking to rent space, look for people to rent space, and then I don't know what's available in the Lace Works, but you may be able to find a more permanent home. I have no idea how much it costs for these spaces, but maybe based on your mission, they wouldn't mind housing you, because I have concerns about, that property. And it seems that, I'll go through the history. It was a house and then it was vacant. And we have gotten feedback from a number of people that live in Lambert's Hill. They were very concerned about what our disposal of that property would mean to them for their quality of life. And, based on what I've heard, you're bringing bands up and music, and so that's, and speakers and all, and that's a concern that I have for the Lambert Hill people. But also, there's no lighting on the outside of the building. The road is passable, and it sounds like it's not a walking place, so people are going to local people will walk, but there will be people driving there. And I don't know where you're going to put. There's no plans that I know of for any parking more than 4 or 5 cars on that property. So, I have a lot of concerns about how this will affect the neighborhood, but the sound level, the activity, the number of people coming in and out. It's really bad intersection at the bottom. It's really a much more intensive use than it would have ever been used for. So I've been to your place. I know what you do, and you have testimony from people that support what you do, and I support what you do. I just don't think that this is the location to do it in right now. So I would encourage you to. I don't know how the council feels, because that's the first time I've heard the presentation. But we've all been up in that building, and we know there are challenges in it now, even if there's nobody in there. So that's one of my concerns as well. So that's why I came up with alternatives, because it's not like you're going to. I don't want to get the feeling that if we say no on you renting, that your organization disappears, because that's not where I'm at all. I'm public safety, effect on what you're doing to the neighborhood. Not that it's good or bad, but there is an effect that those people have not had an opportunity to talk about it, with us about it, how they feel. So there's a lot of, there's still a lot of hurdles to go through in my mind. And since it seems it's going to take 2 months to do, and then we're not even sure that once we go through this, are we responsible to notify Lambert Lane, Lambert's Hill, and have those folks come down? Because this is going to be a more intensive use than they experience.
Well, I would just note that, there is an ordinance and there is a public hearing, so it is noticed.
That's true too.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a standard process, and you've heard me talk about residents need to pay attention to what's happening in their local government. So, you know, we can certainly do some outreach. I certainly know enough people out there, so I'd like to do some outreach, which I think is important. Yeah.
There's also a noise ordinance, so
Oh, Mary,
after.
we're not taking any
sorry.
public comment. Thank you.
I was very moved by not only the number of people who spoke in support of Susan, but their words, what they said, and how much it means to them. And it was really a very persuasive experience for me. When I think about the logistics, it makes me a little nervous, right? And we got to put this on the table. Like, I would love to see this work. Okay, based on what I heard tonight, I second Councilman Lyde's support. I would love to see this work. I'll say something I said to the mayor yesterday, you never heard before, I couldn't believe it, and I hopefully you won't get upset with me, but it's like work takes a certain amount of time, and you can't have 9 ladies have the baby in 1 month, thing, right? I'm concerned about the time frame, kind of pushing up against our need. Really, it is a need for the city to dispose of that property. And we really would like to do it this year. So I'm thinking, okay, we rush to an ordinance, we get it in there, then we have to do mitigation, we have to construction mitigation. There's a whole process for that, right? I'm assuming stuff has to go out for bid. We have to find people, we have to get on their calendars, you have to get stuff done. We wouldn't even be allowed to have you use the facility. I'm guessing conservatively, I'm gonna say 3 months. All right, because you can't introduce till June 15th, then you gotta have 2 weeks, then you have to put stuff out for bid, then you have to have people come in, then you have to engage them, yeah, and then the work has to get done. And I'm just trying to be realistic about it. And we want to sell it. And we would have, the city would have invested funds to upgrade the facility for your use for, you know, this really finite, short period of time. So I don't know. I'm really torn about this, really torn.
Yeah, it's tough because it's a great place.
It
I've been
is.
there.
It
And I
is.
was wondering too, because I'm not confused, but I don't know the whole thing too, is that if there's different events, you know, too, I mean, there's the day-to-day and then there's events too. And is there a way to accommodate events if you're having meetings and things with other city facilities? Like, could we use, you know, if, you know, you know where I'm kind of going.
Like office
It's getting
space.
late, I'm running out of words, but yeah, to be able to kind of bridge for like different events when, if there, you know, you can't find a permanent nest right now, or you're still looking, like to be able to, that, is there a way we can facilitate that at all? Like providing meeting space?
Can I respond to that question?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I just want to say that this is not the only space that Susan has been in before, and one of the tenets, you know, one of our principles is that change is inevitable and to be like water. And so we fit into this space because this space provided a certain type of work that we could do. That's not the only work that we do. Like you said, we have meetings, we have, you know, all sorts of different things that happen. It's not just like rock concerts or, you know, anything, you know, and we, you know, if the space didn't accommodate that, we wouldn't do it. I mean, we operated out of, you know, on the off nights at Manon for many years, starting in 2008, and, you know, just kind of did quiet, you know, dinner, you know, kind of party type thing, where it was appropriate, and it's appropriate for the space. So I don't want what we currently do to impact too much, you know, the decision of what we could do, you know, in a different space. So
I think the neighbors by the Hibernia really get along with you, and you have a great relationship with everyone. So, you know,
Yeah.
that's 2 times, Mignon and also than our house, where the neighborhood has been very welcoming.
Like, even, in the, like, immediate needs, like there's an event on, or you're having a meeting on such and such a date, or is there other places that can facilitate, that we, like this building, can we facilitate that? Or is there a way to, do we have a leasing, like to use the space, or maybe there's a way,
We have a
an
facility.
emergency kind of,
Yeah.
where you couldn't move your stuff here, you can move in, but, to be able to carry on the mission in some way. And what do you call it? It's like a bridge loan or something,
A bridge lease.
bridge lease without, in a facility that's designed for,
Assembly
for assembly, where,
and presentations and
well, yeah.
movies
like
and
hang
all
out,
that.
And it's got exit signs and the
Yeah.
parking and the.
I would just a couple of other thoughts. So, we had Ken take a look at this. We have not had the fire official take a look at this. She's only here a couple days a week, and I've just like up there. I have no idea whether, whether that's, to what extent that may pose a challenge. So that, that's another thing that we need to consider. And, your reflection or your comment about sort of being like water, it would be important for us to know how you plan on using the space and, how many people you plan on having up there, right? So, with all due respect, that answer was a little too nebulous for me. We would need to have sort of more concrete, at least I would, to feel comfortable that, the load, the maximum is being met in an appropriate way. So, and I'm happy to send you this memo tomorrow. I would have sent it to you, but we just got it yesterday. So, there's a maximum of 85 people, in that space with tables and chairs, right? So, but if you know the space, 85 people, unless you've got chairs in every bedroom and in the bathrooms, I mean, it's calculated on the square footage, not necessarily on the practical realities of, a number of rooms that are smaller or larger, adjacent or not. So, that also, poses, at least in my mind, some questions about, the main living room, for example, which is a small space in the end, it's just not that big. It'd be important to understand how you, kind of what your plans were in terms of numbers on any given event. And I think to Councilman Stegman's point about parking, we talked a little bit about this. I think that's really a serious concern, right? I mean, we could come up with a parking plan potentially where you've got maybe 4 spots down by the Holcomb house, but then you've got to walk up the gravel drive. But really only parking for probably 1 or 2 cars up the house itself. So, we have to take all of these things into consideration when we think about, as Council President said, accessibility and so forth.
And we have, I don't think, or we've shared this with, with Lieutenant Brown, that this is a possibility. We don't have his input yet. So this, when I said there's still hurdles to do and they don't happen immediately, that's another, that's someone else, to weigh in on it. It's not, I wish it was easy. I kind of would be great if we were further on in the process that we have, but it's a lot really quickly to get done. And there's an event that we have what do we call that? Property request?
It's a facility use request.
Facility use request that if you have, and the schedule on here is there's a set reservation of this building for certain things already, but doesn't mean that we can't accommodate, we can't work that into your schedule by giving you, a place for a large gathering, right?
The biggest thing that we have to consider is this place is used Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which I think would probably be hot nights.
Yeah.
It already is committed with that.
Acting has the lease on the space for weekends.
That the theater does, but if your water fits in during the week and the court's not here, planning and zoning board aren't here, they're not here, you could tailor your event towards when the room is available. So that's always an option. So you can have part of what, what you're doing so well in the inclusive, and I know we talked about the ride years ago that you supply, you have people, so there's many services you provide. I just don't think that I think, using an existing facility that's built for it is probably, a better idea. It's a beautiful property up there. I know it is. I know. But this may be more manageable. It's 2 blocks from where you work, so to speak. And, if you work out your schedule to when this building is available, it's, handicap accessible, is a parking lot with some open spaces, but it's easier to park down here during the week than it is on weekends. So it may be a good interim move for you if nothing really works out. You have that we can offer you a place to meet and people and your members and could utilize this. And it's probably the kind of thing where we know what the timetable is in here. We don't know what the timetable is that we're facing in the log home. So it's not about what you do. It's about making sure that the facility that you use is set up for what you want to do, and that property, the log house is it's not really set up for that type of use at this point. But I think we could, we have this building, and if it's a small group that has to meet and this building isn't available, we have another building or two that probably more difficult to use at night than this is. I was talking about the meeting room in City Hall, but it's part of the facilities request, and if the date works out, then we'll make it happen, right?
So honestly, I think the only night that you could use City Hall
What
would
night?
be Tuesday nights are the only night, I think.
So
And
there
then
are
we get
options available for you to carry on your mission and still be in the city and still be walkable and to support your mission and carry on in the interim until you find a bigger home. That's
Another thought that comes to mind is, have you been in touch with Calmia Club? They use that building one night a month. And they, maybe they'll consider a month-to-month type of lease arrangement. I know they have a facility use arrangement for people who want to use the building. It's big open space. It's conducive to gatherings of people who want to sit and, convene and hang out and listen to music. It's not air conditioned. But you may want to reach out to them and see if they'll consider helping you out. I mean, and it's a good location, right in town, walkable.
So I think that the council's okay with this at this point. What I would consider doing, I think that there are still a number of unresolved questions. Realistically, is it possible that we would be able to introduce an ordinance in 2 weeks? It seems doubtful to me, quite honestly, to be very upfront about that. I'm willing, the council will give me leave to kind of proceed doing a little, trying to answer some of these questions in the next week or so. And, depending, I believe that it is probably Bill can, but I would only do this with the council kind of approval, where you would entrust the decision to me about whether it's appropriate to proceed to an ordinance. If the council's comfortable with that, I will make a determination. I do think that it's important to bring the council in as often as possible, but the time is of the essence here. I think that we take all this information. I talk to the fire official, I get Bill to sort of weigh in on some of these other legal issues. I have questions about, would this work be done after? We have to wait until after. There's a number of questions that I still have that I think need answers before we can comfortably move forward. And I hope you understand that. I think it process is just there's so much process here all the time. But we have to be responsible about the decisions we're making. So the council's okay with that. I will work, the next week or so to try and wrap up some of these, answer some of these questions and make a determination whether I think it's really practical for us to continue. I do want to strongly say that I think that space has been great for you. I've only been in it a couple of times, but it's such a lovely, open, dynamic space, and I'd love to see you somewhere long term. So, and I will connect you. I'll do it tomorrow. I will connect you with the person that has space.
I appreciate that, Mayor. And one other thing I would ask, I know we're not prepared to talk about the letter you received about the sale by Hibernia, but is that something that you can have the city attorney look into to see what options the city may have regarding that?
Yeah, Bill, so I guess that I don't want to go, it's getting late, so we'll talk about this for a couple minutes, but to me, it seems reading this piece that there are two kind of salient questions. One, does the city have standing in this matter in terms of the deed and the restriction from 18, whatever it was about it always being a public, having benefit to the public? And two, we do have standing. Are we interested in pursuing it? Right? I mean, this is a complicated legal question that will incur immediate costs. I've only thought about this letter for a few hours today, and I'm not settled in on a personal position on it because I don't have all the facts. But I don't know if you can give us like a 2-minute sort of talk about how this would unfold, what the process would be like.
Sure, the standing question is a threshold question that we have to answer. At least be comfortable with our position on that. We don't obviously wait for probably court to decide if it gets to that point, but we have to be comfortable with whether or not we can make an argument that the city has standing. First off, second, I have some. I don't know. Maybe it's something we'd be able to find in the city's records if the city has them without having to do a title search, which would take.
If you ordered title search, yeah, I think there's a title search that they've ordered already. So
If we could see the title search, I mean, I'd be curious to see what the language is exactly in that deed, just because,
Well, we gotta rely on the county. County's got records, so the county have all the records we need. I can talk to it after this.
like the title
After the
search.
meeting.
Yeah, the title searcher will get that information, what's ever recorded with the county, they'll get that. It's just, I think, I don't recall I just looked at the letter briefly a few hours ago, but it was, I think it made reference to public use, but the concern to me is that the city is not a signatory to the deed, so that's a big concern. Right off the bat, but it's something I can look at.
And I guess it also depends on what wording was in the agreement that they signed, that the owner signed over to the fire company at the time of this 1876 event happened. So it's going to be, it'll be.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
Well,
we're always going back to the 19th century in this town. I love it.
Well, I think your two questions are exactly right. And I think that if we get, those answers, I think you'll be in a position to discuss that,
right.
What direction to go.
And
the standing question may resolve the issue. We may not have standing and there's nothing to do.
Yeah.
And then we need to help.
And it may not be a quick issue, and we may not, even if we have standing, we may not.
Well, because then it would be an expense issue,
Right.
or we're gonna spend,
Yeah.
litigation is very expensive coming from the lawyers.
Right.
Well, you gotta find the document.
Getting that, we have that recorded.
So I guess on the firehouse, we'll do some due diligence.
We will.
Right?
We will.
We'll go from there.
Thank you. Watching the clock, I
Thank
should
you
get
for
that
that.
15 minutes ago. All right, so stay tuned. Correspondence, just to explain that I did write a letter to the DOT commissioner requesting a sidewalk along the lower end of Holcomb Park. You get to you cross Phillips Barber Road and you're in the grass, which is fine. but then you have to jump over the creek, which I'm still young enough to do. But I think a sidewalk there would be great. I think a bridge would be great. Tom Ongren suggested this plan and was kind of spearheading the photos and kind of creating this request of the DOT. So that letter went out. We'll see what it yields. Hang on. I would also like to say that we did receive a letter of support from the Lambertville Environmental Commission for the stormwater utility feasibility study. Appreciate them taking a look at that and supporting the study. And now I would like to open it up to public participation again.
Anyone got any energy left?
So I just, because I saw that.
Mary Freeman, please.
Mary Friedman, 37 Paris Street. Because I saw that you were going to talk about short-term rentals tonight, I had some thoughts. So I don't know if you want me to read those or email them to you, since we didn't really talk about it
Yeah,
tonight.
I mean, honestly, it'd be great to, we could have a meeting. I'm happy to set some time aside to go through it.
Yep.
You can read them now. If you
All right,
want.
well, I'll just give you some thoughts.
Okay.
Okay, so Mary Barry Friedman, still. My husband Rich and I live at 37 Perry Street. For the record, we did live at and own the Martin Coriel House Bed and Breakfast at 111 North Union Street. And we did have to go through the zoning process in 2001 to change the use from residential to B&B. So we hesitated to give our opinion about short-term residential rentals like Airbnbs when we started to see it happening in Lambertville, because we knew people would say sour grapes because we had to go through the process. But it does give us a perspective that some people don't have, and we had hoped that a policy regarding short-term rentals would have already been put in place earlier, but it wasn't. So now we're talking about it, and these are just some points that we think should be considered when creating a policy. One is ownership. Since short-term residential rentals are here to stay, not just in Lambertville, but all over, if we want the nature of Lambertville to stay the same, we think there should be a policy in place that states something like you can get a short-term residential rental permit if your listing is your primary residence where you live for X number of years out of the year, a month, 6 months, some, if you look online, some require 275 days. We think this is important so that Lambertville doesn't become a place where many of the houses become investment properties as a business, turning them into Airbnbs. And that's what I mean by changing the nature of Lambertville. The original intent of these short-term rentals was as a way for a homeowner to make some extra money to defray expenses. Remember that air in Airbnb stands for air mattress. It was, you put an air mattress on your floor and rented out some space, not that you bought a house and didn't live there and it became a business. Another thing we thought should be considered is limiting the number of rooms for rent in your home, perhaps 3. Anything more than that, and you would fall under the lodging requirements, whatever they are in town, because I'm not quite sure what they are anymore. And then I believe that Lambertville, although they already require some kind of a permit, I guess, because you have to collect occupancy and sales tax, perhaps there could be some kind of a geographical requirement, meaning that your property must be at least X number of feet, whatever we decide that is, from another short-term rental, so that you don't have too many short-term rentals on one block. Because that would, I think, impact the quality of life for residents. And then, of course, there's safety issues, fire, I'm sure, bedrooms on the 3rd floor. That's probably already, required in the zoning, but I think that would be something you'd want on your permit, that you need a fire escape if there are bedrooms on the 3rd floor. And of course, whatever, all the fire, smoke detectors, fire extinguishers. Another thing that I think should be considered is lighting. If you are, if you don't come to a location on a regular basis and there's not appropriate outdoor lighting, it's a hazard. So I think that kind of thing needs to be thought of. And some places have a specific liability insurance requirement. So anyway, I don't want to create the policy, and I'm happy to be part of a committee to do that if you want. But particularly, I think the ownership and safety issues, so that, we don't have investment type short-term rentals changing the nature of Lambertville. That's all I want to say about that.
Anyone else in the room have something to say? Yes, Mr. Bird.
At the May 18th meeting, which I wasn't at, I'm sorry, Dayberg 255. At the May 18th meeting, you accepted on first reading ordinance number 16-2023, the Shade Tree Commission. All right, it's 14 pages. Can't afford an attorney to look at it, so just is my interpretation of the jurisdiction area. This only has to do with trees, you know, that are owned by someone, that go out over a sidewalk or a roadway or a neighbor. If somebody has a property and there's a tree, okay, and it doesn't meet that, this has no impact. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Sure. Thank you very much.
14 pages and it's simple. That's correct.
What was that?
Never mind. I was just thinking about the length of the ordinance. Anyone else in the room? Please.
Back to the stormwater utility.
I'm sorry. We would ask you to stand up and say your name and your address, please.
Yeah, Louis on 3 Lakeview Road, so it's technically West Elmore, but never a lot of address. Like just for the stormwater utility, so like, they're like, I didn't like this, so they're collecting approval for funding these studies that would like then tell us how much they're gonna tax people depending on whatever. So that just seems silly to me because like I didn't mention anything about climate change, which is the main reason why we're getting all these flooding. And you know, I think like they mentioned green solutions, which is honestly the better solution, permaculture, maintaining buffer zones. You guys mentioned 150 Swan Street. That can be turned into a buffer zone to retain water, maintain trees. We've lost the majority of our ashes and we can't afford to lose any more. You know, how can we do our part to, you know, plant trees and buffer zones? I know Pennsylvania's Department of Environmental Protection is really good about giving funds to maintaining any waterways. We are losing all of our topsoil, especially right now. Everything's super dry. If we get a hard rain, we're going to lose another inch of crucial nutrients soil that we need to feed ourselves. You know, so like, what are we doing to stop that? And like, it just seems like they were selling a concept that just like with very vague words, and it's like there's going to be money made because you know they're selling these utility places to a lot of states like Texas and Florida. Are they really good examples? You know, that's all kind of stuff. Like it was interesting to me, and it brought up a good discussion. You know, so that was just kind of my thought. Kind of confused.
Yeah, well, discussion is what we love here, and hopefully we'll get some data from it, and we'll be able to have some more discussion and then make some decisions. I would just note, you know, I would just say as well, you know, I always think of the first time I listened to Commissioner Lanceret from the DEP speak at some event when he talked about, you know, communities need multi-pronged approaches to climate resiliency. So green infrastructure, you know, hard infrastructure, planting trees, all these things. So they all do have to work together, and we're working on resiliency in many different ways. So I would just say that. Anybody else in the room? Anybody online? One person. All right.
Ms. O'Malley, you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, and I'll be brief tonight. I appreciate the time of the mayor and the council this evening. I just want to speak briefly on the stormwater utility. I would like to see and respectfully request that there be a public information session or some type of a forum where we could have a more detailed discussion and understanding on this before a decision is made. My understanding is that in all cases, eventually the funding costs are fees that are paid by the property owners, residential and commercial, within either Lambertville or if it's regional, the region. And in Lambertville in particular, there are not a lot of choices maybe that property owners have because the properties are developed. So I'd like to see that vetting opportunity, and the mayor kindly offered that with the flood ordinance, and I think it was very helpful. I also would hope that the property owners, both residential and commercial, could be involved in the development of the study and what the study will consist of, because my understanding here is that if the grant is not enough to complete the study or the initial work, then funding will be requested from the city. So that kind of public participation early on, I think, will be important. I'm not sure why there are no stormwater utilities in New Jersey at the moment, although the opportunity has existed for some period of time. And I don't know if anyone has interfaced with the Association of Environmental Authorities at all. For disclosure, I sit on their board, and I know that they have a lot of information on various types of authorities in New Jersey. Finally, to really credit the mayor and council, they have been looking for funding to do some stream cleaning for a significant period of time, and they've met some roadblocks that were outside of their control. And so we, as a property owner at Maxwell Assets, have an interest in understanding how maybe the stormwater authority utility could provide that type of funding to do the stream cleaning and get the permitting and approval that's necessary in a short period of time. I don't know if it's before we enter the next storm season, but I've heard repeated interest in getting that done so that we don't have future flooding. So those are just some of the questions I have on the stormwater utility, and I hope we would have a chance just maybe in a separate hour session to sort of vet those. Thank you for your time tonight and for your efforts on this.
Thank you. There will be lots of conversation and lots of opportunity to talk about stormwater utility from business owners who we're particularly sensitive to. There are a couple of business owners in town who have large swaths of impervious surface. I've already talked to a couple of them to let them know that this is something that is, I think, a worthwhile discussion. So I can guarantee you that there will be lots of opportunity for everybody to participate in this process. More than once. So, that's all I'm gonna say at the moment because I've forgotten, it's late and I've forgotten the earlier questions, but I'm gonna let them go, but you can give me a call or write me an email and I'll get the other answers to you. Anybody else online? Okay, we have a motion to close the public comment period.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any last comments from the council before we ask for a motion?
What's for breakfast?
I'd like to thank the council for their, and Cindy and Lindsay and everybody who stuck it out with us tonight. Thank you very much for your support and being here.
Wait a minute,
we
we have
can't
to
leave.
adjourn.
We can't
No, we can't leave.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
You have to have your flat in the chair.
Let's have a second.
So moved.
May I have a roll call vote of this one?
All right.
Thank you.
So are you June 28th?